my Marvel superhero girlfriend. Hey, Fanfic family. So glad to see you here again to continue this incredible adventure. As always, kindly remember, this story is 100% fiction, so don't go looking for dimensional portals in your closet. All rights to this fantastic novel belong to the original author. We're just your humble narrators of epic tales. Are you enjoying the fanfic? Show it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and dropping us a like. And if you're impatient for more exclusive content, our Patreon is your happy place. Chapter 226, Online Summoning? Wanda returns. As Princess entered the Airseer Temple, a red carpet, no, a cloak, flew toward her. A small orange cat crouched atop it, giving it the appearance of a magic carpet. Princess grabbed the floating cloak and cat and looked forward, spotting several robed elven witches. They were surrounding a stone bed in the center of the hall, where the Crimson Girl lay motionless, enveloped in a protective red light. "How is she doing?" Princess asked. The black-robed witch of a certain age who was in the lead shook her head. She seemed not to care whether Prince was from the divine realm or not. Her attention was always on Wanda in a dress, with a complicated expression. It's so strange. In her body, there is an extremely powerful energy substance. What's even stranger is that her soul is lost. Wait? Prince was stunned for a moment. You said, she has no soul. That's right. Now her soul is no longer in this body. The black-robed witch had a confused look on her face, half explaining and half pondering. Under normal circumstances, the soul cannot be separated from the body for too long. Once separated for too long, the body will gradually begin to reject the soul until the body has no vitality. And once the body that maintains the soul decays, the soul will no longer be able to exist in the world. So, the body and soul are fixed as one. Even if separated, they can only be separated temporarily. This is the first time I've seen a situation like hers. The body that has lost its soul can actually maintain immortal vitality for a long time. The black-robed witch found it more and more incredible. This was beyond her cognition. Wanda's soul isn't in her body. Nian thought back to the previous events and suddenly realized that perhaps he had done something wrong. Diana, who lived with Nian, also knew his thoughts and feelings and was speechless for a moment. You really are. The space necklace had been used up for today and could no longer be reused. Prince suddenly said, you said earlier that the soul and body are connected, and even if they are separated, it's only temporary. So, even if the body and soul are far apart, stimulating the body can still bring her soul back to the body. That's true, the black-robed witch nodded. But I just tried it. I used my magic to stimulate her body, and not only was it rejected by her internal energy, but it didn't produce any effective reaction. I suspect she's been lost for too long, and the stimulation isn't strong enough. The black-robed witch analyzed the problem theoretically. If there is a stimulation that exceeds the energy within her body, combined with calling her name or something that she cares about, perhaps it might be possible to draw her soul back. I'll try. Prince immediately came to the stone bed. Wanda, who had previously resembled Little Red Riding Hood, now slept like a miniature sleeping beauty. Her delicately sculpted face was expressionless, and lying motionless in her red dress, she looked like a lifelike, adorable doll. With Nian at the helm, and Diana assisting, Prince reached out to part Wanda's crimson hair. A white light emanated from his slender, white fingertips, blazing like flames. The nearby elven witches paled, retreating from the stone bed area. The leading black-robed witch's eyes widened. That wasn't just white light, but tangible divine power. Far more vast and terrifying than Thor's divine energy, yet it was easily condensed and focused into a single point. This kind of divine might and power was only seen in Odin. Prince effortlessly manipulated this destructive yet gentle divine energy, his blazing finger resting on Wanda's brow. Immediately, a surge of crimson energy, previously suppressed by the red band bounding the crimson hair, erupted in a defensive counterattack against the energy in Prince's hand. Impossible to approach, let alone stimulate. As expected, Prince suddenly realized that even the divine power of this symbiotic fusion could not surpass the crimson energy residing within Wanda's body in terms of intensity. This was understandable. After all, that was a suspected infinity stone, and its energy intensity was the ceiling in this universe. Luckily, I have gems, too. Prince secretly reached into his magic levitation cloak and grasped the necklace pendant around the little emperor's neck. The space necklace was indeed unusable today, but that didn't mean it had lost its original power. What mattered was never the space necklace, but what lay within it. Stimulated by Prince's fused divine energy, a blue light emanated from the pendant, even creating a spatial distortion in its instantaneous appearance, but it had no effect on the seemingly ordinary hand. Prince channeled a ray of energy from the space stone, neutralizing it with his own fused divine power. He then focused and carefully channeled it towards Wanda's brow. The energy flame wrapped around his fingertips shifted from pure white to bluish white, with a rainbow inner flame glimpsed through the center. This time, the crimson energy's emergency defenses were directly pierced. Under Prince's control, the energy began to gently burn Wanda's body, Wanda's tightly closed eyes, her tiny eyelashes trembling. Success. With a thought, Prince called softly, "Wanda. Can you hear me?" At this moment, somewhere in the universe, aboard a black spaceship, constantly warping. In the sleek metallic corridors of the ship, alien soldiers armed with strange guns and clad in protective combat gear passed by, patrolling a circle before disappearing at the end of the corridor. Once it was completely out of the area, a corner of the deserted corridor flickered with a hazy light and shadow, faintly revealing the figure of a young woman in a dress, her invisible crimson hair flowing freely. The ship's alarms didn't go off, and the girl disappeared from the camera feed. Wanda's soul blinked and whispered to herself, "So, everyone on this ship is a bad guy." Just now, she had unexpectedly glimpsed the secrets of this ship, and indeed the entire fleet. It seems. I'm getting closer and closer. Wanda's soul felt a flicker of surprise. The ship's destination wasn't Earth. Suddenly, the girl's soul froze in midair in the ship's corridor, only to faintly see a cluster of dazzling flames and hear a familiar, melodious voice calling to her. "It's Miss Diana." Wanda's soul leaped with joy, glancing around quickly. "Where are you?" The Airseer Temple. Stimulated by Prince's neutralizing energies and the call of her name, Wanda's body showed a noticeable reaction, but it was only a sign of awakening, not a true awakening from her coma. The crimson energy's stress response became increasingly intense, with streams of crimson light emanating from the Scarlet Girl's body. The black-robed witch shouted hurriedly, "Not exciting enough. Talk about something she cares about." Pietro. Nian manipulated Prince into speaking a name that must have been important to Wanda. Suddenly, Wanda's fingers twitched slightly, but she still didn't wake up. "Auntie, what should I say?" Nian didn't know. If even the name of Pietro wasn't enough to draw Wanda's lost soul back, what else could possibly surpass that? "Silly, let me do it." Diana took back control of Prince's body. She leaned close to Wanda's ear and whispered something that stunned Nian. The next moment, a phantom, as if from the very edge of the universe, disregarded the distance between them and forcibly dragged them back to the Scarlet Girl's body. Wanda, lying on the stone bed, suddenly opened her jewel-like eyes. Chapter 227 Ether Particles, Elves Invasion. The moment the Crimson Girl opened her eyes, the energy flames burning on Prince's fingers extinguished, and a crimson energy surged outward. The air swirled with an aura of destruction and chaos, startling the surrounding witches and elves into fleeing the divine palace. Whoosh! Prince stood motionless near the stone bed. The crimson shockwaves only ruffled her hair, causing no actual harm. The red magic cloak fluttered downward, isolating the crimson energy. Wanda sat up and glanced around blankly, feeling a touch of fear in the unfamiliar surroundings. Upon spotting a familiar figure at the edge of the stone bed, she rushed over, unable to suppress her emotions. "Miss Diana. I'm glad you're back." Prince breathed a sigh of relief, hugging the Crimson Girl's petite, soft body, but his brows remained furrowed. The crimson energy was clearly still lingering within Wanda. It wasn't over yet. "Master Nian, is the master okay?" Although Wanda had just been rescued and her body was still trembling slightly with lingering fear, she kept her cute eyes wide open and kept looking for another figure in the hall. "Oh, he's fine, I promise." Prince blinked. "Could he say that the person holding you now is your master?" "Your Majesty." At this time, the witches who fled outside in panic all bowed in awe and saluted at the door of the Asgard. Odin walked in with a slight nod, followed by Thor, the god of thunder, who had just been scolded and was still a little unconvinced. "Father, didn't you say that the Asgard Hall is not for outsiders to set foot in?" Thor scratched his head. "They're not outsiders, they're guests." Odin's aged face was solemn. His single eye gazed at Wanda, who sat on the stone bed. Watching the flash of crimson energy on his body, he asked gravely, "Where did you encounter this energy?" "Earth, Of course. Old sir, do you know what the energy in Wanda's body is? Prince asked curiously. Old sir. Thor's mouth twitched. It was the first time someone had addressed his father that way. Odin didn't care about it. He kept looking at the scarlet energy flowing out of Wanda's body, his face showing a complicated expression. Of course. Of course I know. That is, the ether particles. Ether particles. Thor was stunned for a moment, and said bluntly, I seem to have heard of it when I was a child, but I have forgotten what it is exactly. It's normal for you to forget. For me, it's a very long time ago. Odin waved his hand, signaling the elf witches in the hall to leave. After the witches left, he spoke with reminiscence. Nearly 100,000 years ago, when my father was the leader of Asgard, there was a large evil race in the Nine Realms universe, the Dark Elves. Legend has it that the Dark Elves wanted to steal the light. Thor remembered something again. These were all one of his previous bedtime stories. Odin nodded and said, the Dark Elves' leader, Malekith, created a doomsday weapon called the Ether. Ether particles can transform all matter into dark matter. The Dark Elves vainly attempted to transform the universe into a dark realm through the ether particles. Later, my father led his troops to crush the Dark Elves' plan and forever sealed the ether particles underground in a cosmic civilization. After hearing Odin's story, Prince couldn't help but wonder, then why is it on Earth now? Odin's one-eyed expression grew more complicated. Perhaps, the 9 realms are merging into one. He paused, then continued, although the 9 realms are divided into relatively independent realms, they actually still exist in the same dimension. Just like a solar eclipse on your Earth, the 9 independent realms will overlap at a certain moment, connecting parts of the 9 realms. Of course, the overlap doesn't last long. I see, Prince said suddenly. Should we say they were lucky or unlucky? The 9 realms merging, which happens only once every tens of thousands of years, just happened to happen upon their family trip. Furthermore, the abandoned factory they arrived at in Paris, France, happened to be connected to the underground of the cosmic civilization where the ether was buried. However, this ether, Nian was absolutely certain that the ether itself was actually the third Infinity Stone. The Dark Elf Malekith, like the Ancient One, had used the Infinity Stones he had obtained to create a magical artifact. Just like the Cosmic Cube, the Mind Staff, and so on. The ether was clearly just a carrier for an Infinity Stone. So the question arose. Prince's gaze quietly fell on Odin. Did he know about the Infinity Stones? Nian wouldn't believe him if he said he didn't. After all, even the evil god Loki, who attacked New York the last time, knew how to properly use the Cosmic Cube and the Mind Staff. He knew, but didn't say. Diana, reflecting on Nian's thoughts, thought, this means he's hiding the Infinity Stones. Or perhaps, he's hiding a secret many times greater than the Infinity Stones themselves. This explanation makes the most sense, Nian agreed with his aunt. The god King Odin must be hiding a secret behind the Infinity Stones. Dark Elves. Wanda seemed to know something. She blinked her eyes and asked quietly, as if to confirm, where's this place? A place called Asgard, what's going on? Prince stroked Wanda's head. Ah. Wanda's eyes widened and she said quickly, the Dark Elf fleet is about to attack here. Odin's eyes narrowed. What did you say? You can't just say that. Thor was shocked. I saw them leave with my own eyes. If this is Asgard, then it must be true. Wanda tilted her head, wondering, could there be another place called Asgard? That's even more impossible. Thor frantically said, Asgard is unique. Odin shook his head slightly, muttering to himself, why didn't I think of that? The ether has awakened, so naturally the Dark Elves have awakened too. They're not just heading for the ether, but for Asgard as well. Before he could finish his words, boom. Outside the Aesir Palace, in front of Asgard, and in the direction of the Rainbow Bridge, a roaring sound came. It's actually true. Thor's face changed. Enemy attack. Odin marched decisively out of the hall, Thor following closely behind, leaving Prince and Wanda alone inside. Miss Diana, what should we do? Wanda asked worriedly. Don't worry about them. I'll extract the ether from you first. Prince said. Previously, neither Nian nor Diana had been able to remove the ether from Wanda without harming her. But now, in perfect 3-in-1 mode. Chapter 228, Beyond Odin's Divine Body. Boom. Beyond the Rainbow Bridge, black smoke curled and flames blazed. Several blade-shaped assault ships were destroyed by Asgardian turrets, crashing into the golden Asgard's buildings. More dark warships and spaceships surged in, overwhelming the divine realm above the 9 realms. The first to suffer the most severe damage was the Asgardian prison. At this moment, the divine realm prison. Bang, bang, bang. The divine realm soldiers stationed there were repeatedly blown to the ground, falling like wheat harvested in autumn. They encountered only one invading enemy, a 3-meter-tall, burly dark elf warrior, his powerful, bulging muscles like a fleshy ball, and clad in cold, ferocious dark armor, resembling a humanoid beast. Sprinting through the prison, he was like a human tank. No divine realm soldier could stop the elven warrior, forcing his way into the prison's innermost chambers. Here, there were specially constructed prison cells, each equipped with a protective energy shield. Imprisoned within these cells were criminals captured by Asgard during its campaign to quell the unrest at the borders of the 9 realms. Dark elf warriors began to disrupt the energy cage switches, releasing all the imprisoned 9 realms criminals. For a moment, the prison was filled with the cries of the criminals' revelry. In one of the cells, a dark-haired young man with a sinister aura lay bored on his bed, imprisoned alone in a cell. He ignored the dark elf who had entered from outside to free the prisoners. "Just going to die?" the evil god Loki said, his gaze coldly observing the prisoners leaping from their cages. As the god of stratagem, he knew immediately that the dark elf warriors weren't rescuing them out of kindness, they were releasing the prisoners simply to hinder the Asgardian soldiers. They were mere cannon fodder. Still, this is also an opportunity, Loki muttered to himself, his face enigmatic and sinister, leaving no one to know what he was thinking. Elsewhere. The Airseer Palace. A magical levitation cloak held the little orange cat, who stood guard by the doorway. Outside the hall, thunder and artillery bombardments continued, accompanied by agonizing cries, gradually approaching the area. "Don't worry. I'm here, there's nothing to worry about," Prince said calmly, letting Wanda continue to lie flat on the stone bed. "I believe in Lady Diana." Wanda lay on the stone bed, eyes closed obediently. For some reason, she sensed a warmer aura from Lady Diana. Like a young master, Prince placed his fingers on the girl's smooth forehead again, but this time, no energy flames blazed from his fingertips. Unlike the previous stimulation of Wanda's body, Prince's fingers touched Wanda's brow, revealing a message through her cool skin, revealing the unprepared. A hiss. The crimson energy within Wanda's body suddenly stirred. Prince's eyes sparkled, observing all this calmly. Just as Odin had said before, ether particles will autonomously parasitize a living being, devouring its energy until it is completely transformed into dark matter. Therefore, under the guidance of another being, the ether particles will instinctively transfer to a being with greater power. With a swish, Wanda's exposed white skin took on a translucent hue. The crimson energy within her body, like living blood, moved upwards along the veins of her body. Some of it seeped out of her body's surface, converging and flowing towards Prince's palm. This is the simplest and most effective method to remove the ether particles. But even the witch and Odin are reluctant to use this method. The reason is simple. A being with greater power must endure the ether's corrosion on behalf of the one it is attached to. This is an endless cycle. However, the ether particles, like crimson mist, attached themselves to Prince's right hand, but miraculously disappeared after entering the body's surface. Whoosh! The ether particles continuously separated from Wanda's body and disappeared into Prince's fair, slender right hand. At this time, the devouring dimension. In the depths of a vast, lifeless space, a crimson mist of ether appeared out of nowhere. The crimson energy, devoid of life, tumbled a few times before forming a crimson liquid ball. At its core, a gem faintly appeared. A ruby. Red, so that's it. Prince understood everything. Why had Nian's cognition been disrupted before? Why could it switch energy and matter, even modify and disrupt spatial positions? It turned out to be the Infinity Stones possessing those special properties. Wanda, how are you feeling? Prince released his hand and gently asked Wanda. "I feel great. I'm not dizzy anymore," Wanda said happily as she touched her forehead and stood up. "Try to open a portal back to Earth," Prince urged. "Okay." Wanda immediately jumped off the stone bed. She pulled a strange ring from the pocket of her red dress, put it on her finger, and began to chant and draw circles, like a true little witch. Zizzy. A spark of light ignited from the temple, spinning into a wheel, the sparks quickly coalescing into a circular portal. Beyond the portal lay the parkland that had been the meeting point. Let's go back. Guanlu is still waiting over there, Prince said with a smile. Okay. Wanda, anticipating meeting Nian, leaped with joy. Kicking her black boots high and embracing her cat-emblazoned cloak, she stepped through the portal. Just as Prince was about to take a step and follow through, he sensed something and paused. At the same moment. Bang! The gates of the Airseer temple flung open. A mysterious figure dressed in dark clothing and wearing a pale mask burst in, surrounded by a group of aliens armed with strange guns. There's a scent of ether particles here. His voice was hoarse and sharp. Malekith looked at Prince standing in front of the portal and spoke coldly, emotionless. It's on you, right? Give me back the ether. What if I refuse? Prince asked calmly. Kill her. Malekith pronounced his sentence like the god of death. The next moment, the wall on one side of the hall shattered, and a dark, burly figure rushed in, charging towards Prince with undiminished speed. Miss Diana. Wanda, who had returned to the park lawn, turned back and shouted at Prince in front of the portal. Before she could finish her words, the dark elf warrior had already rushed to Prince's side. The shadow cast by his 3-meter body enveloped the portal, and a fist the size of a shield slammed down on Prince's head, turned into meat paste. Bang! The sound was louder than the sound of the wall crashing through the hall. The dark elf warrior convulsed like a shrimp, his armor cracking and shattering, and he flew backwards. Chapter 229, Sword-Slashing Immortal Palace, The End of Darkness. Watching a single blow send the dark elf's strongest warrior flying from the Airseer's halls, not only the dark elf soldiers on the scene, but even Malekith, their leader, was stunned. When had such a figure appeared in Asgard? It'll be over soon, Prince said, pointing to the portal behind him, then stepped directly towards Malekith. The leader of the Dark Elves, right. I was going to let Odin and the others handle it. Since you've come all this way, let's just deal with you. Prince's face remained calm, his tone matter of fact. Quick, stop her. Malekith suddenly cried out in shock, realizing the formidable strength of the opponent. Unfortunately, he was a step too late. Or rather, a step too early. If Malekith hadn't interrupted Prince's return to Earth, this wouldn't be the case. He would have to pay the price for this, hearing the leader's words. The surrounding dark elf soldiers raised their alien weapons, some even unearthing elven grenades powerful enough to collapse parts of space. However, Prince was even faster than them. Clang. Prince crossed his hands, and the protective silver bracelets on his wrists clashed with each other, making a dull sound like the clanging of bells. Bang! A dazzling golden divine light emanated from the silver bracelets. With Prince as the center, air and sound waves exploded, and a powerful shockwave erupted outward. The dark elf soldiers within the Aesir Hall were caught off guard and were all blown away, along with their weapons. Trample. Malekith thrust his right foot back against the floor, and the floor cracked and collapsed under his heavy foot. Damn it! Malekith crossed his hands in front of him, his face twisted and distorted beneath his pale mask, barely blocking the impact of the protective bracelets. His dark eyes suddenly reflected a cold and perfect figure. A dark-haired figure wielded a silver longsword in one hand. Goodbye. Prince, barely a beat behind the shockwave, appeared close to Malekith. No unnecessary movements, no activation of any other abilities. Prince's eyes shone brightly. In his right hand, he grasped the Vulcan sword, previously slung behind his back. As the patterned silver blade erupted in a blazing white divine flame, he slashed down from above. He watched as the dark elf warrior, like a ball of flesh, was blasted through the hole in the Aesir Hall wall and soared to the Asgard building across the way, 50 meters away. Thor, the god of thunder, nervously stepped forward, wanting to check on the situation within the Aesir Hall. But then, his pupils suddenly constricted. A chill ran through his body, his heart and soul trembling with fear. A white light, brighter than a crescent moon, suddenly burst forth from within the Aesir Hall, shattering the air with its sharp force. The crescent-shaped light burst forth, piercing the main entrance of the hall. It swept swiftly across the Asgard floor beside Thor, extending to the end of the Asgard territory 100 meters away. What is this? Thor's astonished gaze followed the crescent-shaped light, leaving a deep scar on the Asgard surface. He turned to gaze at the magnificent and luxurious Aesir Hall before him. He saw a smooth crack spreading from the roof, extending all the way down to the polished golden floor beneath his feet. Asgard, nearly split open. Night. Asgard Hall. Odin sat on the golden throne, scepter in hand. Thor, draped in a red cloak, entered. "Father, how is the battle going?" Odin said with a dignified expression. Thor responded quickly, "Everything has been resolved. After the death of the Dark Elf leader Malekith, the remaining Dark Elves who invaded Asgard were leaderless and were wiped out by our soldiers in one fell swoop. The criminals who escaped from prison were also arrested and brought back. However, our soldiers also suffered heavy casualties." When Thor said this, his rough face revealed a look of grief, and he said unwillingly, "Although I don't want to admit it, if that guy hadn't killed Malekith, the number of casualties in Asgard would have increased. Are you convinced this time?" Odin's mouth corners rose quietly. "Now, she is indeed strong." Thor clenched his fists and vowed, "But I will not back down because of this. Father, I will definitely win back your sword in the future. As long as you are not discouraged." Odin nodded with satisfaction and smiled, "You have grown up too. In the future, do what you really want to do in your heart." "Okay, Father." Thor nodded gratefully. He suddenly remembered something and said, "By the way, the body of Malekith, the leader of the Dark Elves, is a bit strange." "Strange? Why is it strange?" Odin frowned. "Malekith's body was split in half by a sword. However, when our soldiers were collecting his corpse, they discovered that he had already lost his heart before the sword cut him." Thor frowned and asked curiously, "Father, don't the Dark Elves have hearts?" "No." Odin shook his head. "The heart is the source of power for the Dark Elves. It's equivalent to the core of the body's energy and the most indestructible part of the body. Then where is its heart?" Thor didn't know why he was very concerned about this. Odin pondered and said, "Perhaps it was destroyed by the previous king of Asgard in the battle 100,000 years ago. I will send someone to investigate." "But..." Thor wanted to say something, but Odin interrupted him and said in a commanding tone, "You are tired too. Go down and rest first." "Yes." Thor nodded, turned around, raised his cloak, and strode out of the main hall. After Thor left, Odin suddenly gave a wicked smile. "Who cares about the Dark Elves? Foolish Thor, always worrying about such things." His appearance shifted. From his original appearance of Odin clad in golden armor, he transformed into a sinister, black-haired young man draped in black robes. At that moment, somewhere in the universe, beneath a civilization's graveyard, once sealed for tens of thousands of years by the dust of ether particles and the Dark Elves, it remained as empty, dark, and cold as ever, devoid of any life. Plop. Suddenly, a floating black meteorite began to emit a sound like a heartbeat. Plop. 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 The heartbeat grew louder and louder, until it could be heard throughout the entire tomb. A rustling sound. The black meteorite continuously shattered the stone, revealing a corner of what lay hidden within, a completely black heart, distinctly existing, yet still beating and throbbing. If you got closer, you could definitely see it. At the very core of the black heart, the outline of a strange ring was visible. The heart, full of energy and vitality, nourishes the ring like a hotbed. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 230 Return to Earth, Family Hot Spring. Night fell. Earth, a land of neon lights and cherry blossoms. A bright moon hung high in the night sky, casting a cool, faint silver glow. Inside a privately booked hotel, in the hot spring area, a night breeze rustled through the courtyard, rustling the branches of the cherry trees as pink petals fell into the steaming hot springs. Gurgle. A shirtless, black-haired boy, his muscular figure revealed, a warm towel resting on his forehead as he lay sprawled in the vast hot springs. Of course, since it was a family trip, he wasn't alone in the pool. Gurgle, a massive soft, shiny orange fur emerged from the water, and then a small head poked out, meowing with a comfortable and joyful sound. A small orange kitten pawed at the water, happily playing. Really nice. A glass jar floated on the surface of the hot spring, a colorful starfish lying on the bottom inside. Though not immersed in the water, the one-eyed starfish still felt the warmth from the jar's walls, muttering to itself with a relaxed expression, "I forgive you for leaving me alone in this abandoned factory this morning." A red cloak floated beside a black-haired boy. It tried to touch the water with the hem of its cloak, but after getting a corner wet, it quickly shook it off. Nian soaked in the hot spring, his mind clearing, his muscles relaxing, and he felt a significant amount of fatigue disappear. Nian, how are you feeling? A pleasant, cool voice echoed from the other side of a bamboo wall. Very good. Nian opened his eyes and watched the little emperor leap from the hot spring next to him, trying to pull the magic levitation cloak into the pool. He was speechless for a moment. Want to come over here and soak together? The aunt's voice continued to echo from the neighboring room, mingled with the girl's exclamation. Nian's relaxed body suddenly tensed, his mind struggling to clear. Who could possibly withstand this? Next door, in another hot spring pool. A red belt, a long red dress, white socks, a white top, a black suit, and 2 swords, 1 silver and 1 gold, all lay beside the pool. Amidst a curling, steaming mist, 2 women, 1 large and 1 small, soaked in the pool. The former was mature and graceful, her perfect figure akin to a statue of a deity, her voluptuous black hair cascading over her shoulders. The latter was young and petite, already bearing the makings of a top beauty, her waist-length crimson hair drooping into the pool. Miss Diana, let me give you a back scrub, the crimson maid said sweetly, coming up behind a dark-haired woman. Whether it was the prolonged soaking in the hot spring water or Diana's words, her face was tinged with a faint blush, a truly adorable sight. Don't worry, he won't come, Diana said with a wink and a faint smile. I know. Wanda, not sure if she was feeling lucky or regretful, shyly raised her hand to wipe her back. She soon discovered that Diana's back was smooth and white, unblemished by a single speck of dirt. Its perfectly formed curves made it resemble a precious, divine relic. Miss Diana, your skin is truly divine. Is this what it's like to be divine? Scarlet Maid Wanda was filled with envy. She glanced at Diana's silhouette, half emerging from the pool ahead of her, then glanced down at her own, then suddenly dove back under the pool. You'll be the same from now on, Diana smiled. Same. Wanda blushed slightly, pouting as she blew bubbles into the hot spring, her thoughts etched in her mind. Snap. Nian slapped his hands against his cheeks, forcing his spider sense to shut off, otherwise he'd be unnaturally sensing his neighbors. Next week, I have to meet up with Gwen or Kara, Nian said, eyeing the nearly surface towel. He finished his hot spring bath. Nian fished the soaked Xiao Wang and Mo Fu out of the hot spring. The two immediately flailed about, their fur and cloak fabric trembling, spilling water all over the dressing room. You two, behave yourself, Nian scolded. He dried himself, changed into pajamas, and slipped the space pendant he wore around his neck inside. Behind him, a sudden surge of spatial energy reached him. That's right, spatial energy. Ever since wearing the space pendant, Nian had become more sensitive to spatial energy. He turned in surprise to see a bald woman in a yellow robe standing in the dressing room. Master, can you please give us a heads up before you show up next time? You're always like this, it's terrifying, Nian said helplessly, lifting the alert. Master Gu Yi, hands clasped behind his back, said calmly, how could this frighten you? That's true. Nian couldn't argue. Given the extraordinary events he'd encountered, and their frequency, anything short of the beginning of apocalypse wouldn't scare him. The Ancient One stared at him and asked bluntly, you came to the New York Sanctuary to see me today. So, there are things you don't know. Nian shrugged and said, I did go to the sanctuary to see you, but that's almost over. Nian briefly recounted the ether incident, omitting the bet between Odin and Zeus. Afterward, Nian gestured to the devourer cub, little emperor, take the thing out. The little emperor immediately understood, opened his cat-like mouth, coughed a few times, and spat out a glistening ruby. The reality stone. The Ancient One glanced at the ruby, then remained silent for a long moment. He then looked at the black-haired boy beside him. Are you trying to collect all 6? No, no. Nian denied it flatly, feeling helpless. It attached itself to Wanda. It's none of my business. It's fate. The Ancient One shook her head in confusion. She pointed, gathered the ruby from the ground, and tossed a silver necklace over. Nian took it and looked at it, finding it was almost identical to the space necklace he was wearing, with only the shape of the metal pendant being slightly different. It was a necklace artifact that imprisoned the Mind Stone. Nian quickly understood. Master Ancient One said, it takes me some time to create the artifact. After all, there aren't that many artifacts that can serve as carriers for the Mind Stone. As you wish. Nian blinked, a rare courtesy. Master Ancient One sounded a little unaccustomed to it. She gave Xinian a deep look, then turned to open a portal and leave. Master, that red ribbon-shaped artifact. Xinian reminded him. Keep it for Wanda. Master Ancient One threw down these words, waved his hand, opened the portal, and disappeared from the room. Master Ancient One, you're a good man, Xinian sighed secretly. But can't you tell me? What's the name of that artifact, and what magical functions does it have? Chapter 231, Hug from the Gods, Warmth from the Witch. On the evening of our day trip to Asgard, late at night at the Hot Springs Hotel, a small orange cat, cradling a glass jar of starfish, lay in a corner of a room facing the courtyard, sound asleep. A red cloak drifted down, revealing a luxurious, silky fabric beneath, covering the cat's tiny frame like a blanket. These two, it seemed, were in a love-hate relationship. Xinian yawned sleepily and turned off the last nightlight. Only the moonlight streamed in from outside, a stillness so tranquil it felt as if everything had fallen asleep. Wearing loose-fitting local pajamas, Xinian was about to settle into bed on the tatami mat when he heard the faint sound of footsteps in the dark corridor outside. Could this be another extraordinary event? Xinian, having just settled into bed, opened his eyes and glanced at the papered wall to one side of the room. He could see a dark figure in the corridor, approaching the door. Speaking of which, there seemed to be a lot of urban legends in Japan, like Hachishiku-sama and the Ghost Girl. Given the extraordinary nature of this world, could they all be real? Bang! The door to the room swung open gently, dispelling Nian's fantasies. He blinked, the quilt covering his face as he peered through the slits of his eyes at the figure standing in the hallway. Not quite an urban legend, but close enough. The woman was tall and perfectly formed, clad in a loose, thin, white gauze nightgown. Her voluptuous black hair cascaded down her shoulders, shrouded by the thick night air. From her exposed, delicate neck to her feet, the curves of her figure were graceful and elegant. A spirit, perhaps, isn't far from a ghost? Going to bed so early. Diana stepped in, casually closing the door behind her. A bit sleepy today. Nian couldn't help but glance down. The hem of her white gauze nightgown fell to her thighs, revealing two long, delicate legs that swung gracefully as they walked elegantly to the tatami mat. Under the silvery moonlight that streamed into the courtyard, the deity seemed coated in a luminescent moonlight, every inch of her body beautiful. A pair of beautiful eyes gazed at him silently in the darkness. Auntie, would you like to review this? Xinian blinked, casually lifting a corner of the quilt on his left side. Come in, it's cold outside. You're the one who's cold. Diana seemed to see through his thoughts, but she complied and half laid down in the quilt, pulling it up to cover her legs and waist. Yes, I'm the one who's cold. Xinian smiled, and the room seemed to be filled with violets under the moonlight. The tatami mat blanket grew noticeably warmer and more comfortable, and the initial discomfort of the unfamiliar bed vanished instantly. As expected. Wherever my aunt is, that's home. Xinian was sighing inwardly when he suddenly felt a pair of slender, delicate hands reach out, wrapping around his body with a soft, violet fragrance. Hey, hey. Xinian, lying flat on his back, froze, his left ear caressed by a slightly warm breath. In the past, he'd always pestered Aunt Diana to hug him, but this time, Aunt Diana actually took the initiative and hugged him. It was beyond his expectations. Let's go to bed first. No more rehearsals for today, Diana's pleasant, lazy voice rang out from close by. All right. Nian's body stiffened slightly, afraid to move. He felt as if the gods were using him as a pillow. However, there really wasn't any need to rehearse today's events. After all, Venom's Nian and Diana, a triune incarnation, had experienced almost the entire thing. They'd already exchanged every thought, both necessary and inappropriate. The night deepened, dark clouds obscuring the moon, and the room sank into darkness. Nian was debating whether to move a finger, when, just then, soft footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Could this be? Nian's initial sleepiness faded once again, and at the same moment, a knock sounded at the door. Master Nian, may I come in? The soft, sweet voice of a young girl entered. It was Wanda, the Scarlet Maid. Come in. Nian instinctively responded, thinking Wanda had something urgent to say, but then realized now was not the right time. Wait? Nian was about to change his words when the door was already opened by Wanda outside. A true deity. In that instant, Diana moved with incredible speed, making no sound, her body completely submerged under the covers. But the hidden deity was soon stunned. Why was she hiding? Perhaps she didn't want the elegant, intellectual, and mature image she had long maintained as Miss Diana to suddenly collapse in front of Wanda. After all, she looked like a woman insecure and in need of a hug. Xinian's eyes lit up as he watched the girl enter from the corridor. Even in the dark, unlit room, he could still vaguely see Wanda. The Crimson Maiden wore a kimono provided by the local hotel. Compared to the nobility and elegance of her red dress, Wanda in her floral kimono looked even more adorable and well-behaved. Her delicate white feet treaded wooden clogs, her crimson hair tied simply with a red ribbon. Crimson hair, a maid in a kimono, adorable. Xinian felt like one of his wishes from his previous life had been fulfilled. Wanda, what are you doing? Xinian noticed Wanda hugging a pillow. This is what Miss Diana said this afternoon. Warm up the bed. Wanda had been hesitant, but upon entering the room, her cheeks puffed out with a breath. There was no turning back. Wanda gently kicked off her clogs, and with courage, she stepped forward, pulled back the quilt on the other side of the tatami, and slid her petite body under the covers. It was a bit forceful, but more like a sudden, fearful move. Xinian was still dazed, but then he remembered. My aunt had indeed mentioned it that afternoon in Asgard, in the Aesir Hall. It was meant to stimulate Wanda's soul's return, but she'd unexpectedly remembered it. And, you've dug yourself a hole. Don't blame me. Xinian thought to himself, glancing at the bulge in the quilt on his left side. Fortunately, the room was dark, and Wanda, in a state of high alert, didn't notice. Wanda lay down on her right side, her back to Xinian, her body curled up, her face flushed. Xinian glanced at the quilt on her left side, then silently to her right, his body too stiff to move. He sighed deeply. Are we even allowed to sleep? Then, in the corner of the room, inside the glass jar held by the little emperor, Guanluo opened his single, clear eye, glanced at the 3 bulges in the quilt, and quickly closed it again. This family, it was unbearable to look at. Chapter 232 Supergirl, Spider-Woman. The moonlight outside the courtyard was breathtakingly beautiful, each petal of the cherry blossoms gleaming brightly. The tranquil, gentle night slowly drifted through the room. Lying flat on his back, Xinian opened his eyes and found himself unable to fall asleep. In this situation, it was clear his aunt had completely pretended she was gone and wasn't really there. He looked to his right, checking on Wanda, and saw the girl, her petite body curled up in a kimono, her body seemingly even stiffer than his own. If he didn't do something, Xinian suspected that even if he fell asleep, Wanda wouldn't be able to either. Alright, are you still angry? Xinian broke the silence in the room, reaching out to touch Wanda's head and said, Master, I apologize and reflect on my actions, okay? Hey, why am I angry? Wanda, whose body was tense, turned around in confusion. Xinian sighed, because I didn't realize today, your soul can leave your body, and I ended up teleporting away your body. Not only did I cause such a huge blunder, but I also put you in danger of separation. You must be calling me a fool behind my back, right? No. Wanda panicked. Her small hand tightly grasped Xinian's and hurriedly said, I know. The young master was worried about my health, so he used the magical tool to teleport. The magic cloak told me. You can even communicate with a magic cloak. Xinian was surprised. This maidservant was becoming more and more witch-like. Not really a conversation. I just know some of the messages it wants to convey. Wanda's eyes reddened slightly as she said, the magic cloak said. The young master carried me to the hospital and then the sanctuary. He was so anxious. I was very happy. You almost died, and you're still happy. Xinian couldn't help but pinch the girl's high nose bridge. This proves that I still have great value in the young master's heart. Wanda didn't dodge, letting Xinian pinch her. Her pale red eyes were like gemstones, reflecting the silver moonlight outside. It's not about value. Xinian shook his head and said to Wanda, you are priceless. It can't be measured by a great amount of money. Wanda, although you're a maid in this family, I've always considered you a family member. I always have, and I always will. So, if you're in danger, I'll definitely save you. If you're hurt, it's my fault. You're the most precious jewel in this family. I'm sure Aunt Diana thinks so too. Xinian said sincerely. Yes. From now on, I won't let myself get hurt again. Wanda's eyes sparkled, and she nodded firmly. And don't leave me again, in every sense of the word. Yes, master. Dot. She's quite capable. At this moment, the dark-haired woman curled up in the quilt to her left smiled knowingly. Back then, that child had truly grown up. Horizontal ellipsis. Master, maid outfits are very popular here. Would you like to buy a few to take home? Yes, sure. Master, does this kimono I'm wearing look good? Yes. Master, I met a classmate at school. Can you bring her over? Sure. After Wanda's nervousness subsided, she began to talk more. Nian breathed in the scent of violets, listened to the girl's soft and sweet questions, and before he knew it, he closed his eyes and fell into a sweet dream. In the dream, Nian felt like a sausage, sandwiched between two delicious hamburgers, with a smooth and silky cheese filling the middle, making him want to devour it with all his heart. Until, Nian turned over, and the sweet dream was shattered. Nian opened his eyes and found himself lying on the bed in his room. The curtains were completely drawn, letting in the bright, midday sunlight. Nian glanced to either side of him. The bed was empty, except for him, lying in his pajamas. It was already 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. Could everything that happened yesterday have been just a dream? Nian yawned, puzzled, and left the room. Looking up, he saw a golden sword, resembling a work of art, hanging from a shelf on one side of the living room. Odin's sword. It was a dream, no way. Nian woke up. Little Wong was sprawled on the living room sofa, sleeping even later than he had. His red magic levitation cloak draped over the armrest, and the glass jar containing the jars lay in its usual spot on the balcony. As for those two entities, large and small, were no longer home. The voice of the AI Alice echoed from the room. Master. Housekeeper Wanda said your breakfast is ready. Please eat it when you wake up. Okay. Nian gestured with his hand, then washed up and changed into casual clothes. After breakfast, Nian picked up his phone and replied to Gwen and Kara's messages. They both asked him to watch a TV show. He turned on the TV, and a sudden realization struck him. Spider-Woman, the superhero officially announced to join the Avengers, made a dazzling appearance in New York, practically dominating the news coverage on the New York channels. Meanwhile, Gotham has been dominated by the crime-fighting superheroine, her popularity even rivaling that of the local Batman legend. Some have even dubbed her the Goddess of the Earth, a nod to the legendary God of the Earth. Watching the slender figure in spider armor dangling between the city's skyscrapers, and the platinum figure in a female diplomat suit swooping down from the sky to crush a criminal's truck, Nian smiled knowingly. Sometimes he found it hard to believe that he had previously seen them as mere delicate beauties. No. Even now. Nian pondered for a moment, then instructed, Alice, Guanluo. Keep a close eye on the situation in New York and Gotham. All else is irrelevant. Ensure Gwen and Kara's safety. Notify me immediately of any unusual developments. Yes, Master, the AI Alice quickly responded. The company is preparing to launch a dedicated satellite. I will use network information and satellite positioning to keep a close eye on Gwen and Kara. With a long-range satellite and supercomputer in place, Alice will unleash her true potential. Guanluo's mental thoughts echoed, my clones are already spread throughout New York, and will begin infiltrating Gotham City today. Jellyfish clones not only provide insight, they can also be a terrifying biological weapon for ordinary people. That's good, Nian nodded. He wouldn't be a superhero, but he wouldn't stop Gwen and Kara from pursuing their dreams of becoming superheroes. He would simply provide them with a degree of protection, letting them fly freely. Until one day, they tire of flying. Then, Nian's eyes flickered, and no one could tell what he was thinking. Chapter 233, Treasures in the Devouring Space. After arranging for Alice to monitor Gwen and Kara's superheroic status, Nian suddenly remembered something. Something he had always wanted to do but hadn't. Mofu. Nian gestured with his hand, and a red cape flew across the living room, draping itself across his body. The hem of the cape draped downward, transforming into a dark red windbreaker. He put on his boots for going out. Little Emperor, it's time to get up. Open the door. Nian walked to the living room sofa and picked up the small orange cat sleeping on it. The little Emperor finally opened his eyes. Meow. The awakened little Emperor yawned, his mouth widening. The tiny mouth opened fiercely, and tentacles covered with tiny teeth stretched out. The kitten, slightly the size of a palm, swallowed Nian whole. Gurgle. A moment later, the kitten crouched on the sofa, squinting. After Nian disappeared, the deserted living room returned to silence. Black hair and dark red windbreaker rose up behind him as if weightless. Nian felt as if he were transported to space, his windbreaker carrying him slowly downward, landing on a colorful, fleshy meteorite. Since the Asgard incident, his steel body had begun to adapt to the airless environment of space. "Staro, are you alright here?" Nian asked. "Not bad," a spiritual thought echoed from Guanluo. The colorful meteorite beneath Nian's feet trembled violently, then blossomed like a bud, spreading out 5 dazzling, gigantic petals. No, those were just 5 tentacles, more magnificent than petals. In the center of the colorful tentacles, a single, clear eye reflected the young man's figure. Nian stepped on the head of a large starfish, floating in the current devouring universe, which Guanluo had magnified dozens of times. The starfish's surface fluoresced, like a tiny planet, radiating dazzling arcs of energy. It was as if it had split off from Guanluo's original form, Staro. "It's truly rare that you'd come here," Staro said, a hint of resentment lingering in his words. "Hasn't Guanluo always been with us?" Nian shrugged, then suddenly asked in surprise, "Staro, why do I feel like your body has shrunk?" When Staro was first transferred into the devouring dimension, he was already larger than an average building. Now, he's shrunk to the size of a heavy truck. He's shrunk by more than a fraction. "I've indeed shrunk," Staro admitted with a nod. "What exactly did you do?" Nian asked curiously. Normally, as long as Staro doesn't split excessively, his body will grow larger, unless isolated from external energy, like Guanluo, who has been in a glass jar. But now, placed in the vast devouring dimension, Staro has shrunk so much? "Let me show you my recent achievements." Staro extended 5 massive tentacles and began to float and move. After passing through a dark mist, Nian's vision suddenly opened up. Nian was stunned. What he saw was a small planet. Yes, this was the first time such a thing had appeared in the boundless devouring dimension, as vast as half the universe. Though the planet before him was only about 100 meters in radius, it was covered entirely with vibrant grass, a sleek, pure green planet of life. "Staro, how did you do that?" Nian used his magic levitation cloak to float down, stepping onto the grass of the small planet and discovering that it actually contained air. The gravity was about half that of Earth, and the temperature was perfectly comfortable. "I was just playing around with energy transformation. If I had more energy, I could make it even bigger and better," Staro said proudly. "How is that?" "Amazing, isn't it?" "Amazing," Nian exclaimed with genuine admiration. The visual and cognitive impact of this scene surpassed Staro's previous extraordinary abilities, such as energy consumption, fission clones, and telepathic communication. Regardless, this was the creation of a planet. A planet of life. Such abilities bordered on the creator. "Wait? You just said, with enough energy, you could make it even bigger and more perfect?" Nian asked. "That's right. I've been storing energy outside for the past 20 years, and most of it's been used up here," Staro replied telepathically. Nian touched the collar of his shirt, where he wore a silver necklace. The thing he had the most on him was probably energy. After all, the Space Stone's predecessor, the Cosmic Cube, was the source of Hydra's infinite energy during World War II. In a sense, the Infinity Stones themselves contained nearly limitless energy. And he had 3 of them. If he gave Staro that infinite energy, wouldn't he be able to create a true planet? A second Earth, perhaps? Nian shook his head, withdrawing his thoughts. He couldn't use a planet that large himself. However, this place could serve as a temporary refuge, a truly safe refuge. After all, the only entrance was Xiao Wang's mouth. Even someone of the Ancient One's level couldn't enter directly without having been here before. Nian used Staro's body as a hovering saucer and continued to enter a region of the devouring dimension. Very quickly, Nian arrived at an area resembling a cosmic garbage dump. All manner of debris floated everywhere, covering the vast expanse, stretching as far as the eye could see. Most of it consisted of bizarre alien artifacts, even the remains of alien spacecraft and creatures. Due to the dimensional fission inheritance of the Element Devourer clan, some of this alien debris was devoured by Little Emperor's predecessor, Gugu. Others were taken by the generation before that, or by the oldest Element Devourer. Given their nature and their long-standing heritage, Nian wouldn't be surprised by anything in the Element Devourer space. I've come here to sort the trash in my free time. I've hauled aside anything usable or good for you, Starro said. Are there any working spacecraft? Nian asked casually, using his magical levitation cloak to fly forward, weaving through the space debris. Of course, there are more than one, Starro replied quickly. It's really edible. Nian flew over the alien artifacts Starro had sorted, feeling they were infinitely more spectacular than Stark Industries' annual technology exhibition. These were artifacts from civilizations across the universe, dating back billions of years. Alice would scan and sort them batch by batch, focusing on their technological value. Just as Nian was thinking this, something no bigger than a thumb among the floating alien artifacts touched his forehead. What is this? Nian grasped it in his hand, examining it. It was a ring. More precisely, a simple yet exquisite ring, made of an unknown material. It felt cool to the touch, its surface mottled and worn, as if it had been made in ancient times. It's garbage. I've tested it, and it doesn't have any energy. Starro glanced at the mottled ring the boy had found, then quickly looked away. Really? Nian, however, found the texture and feel of the ring quite pleasant, and he casually put it away. Chapter 234 Wanda's classmates come to play at home. A mysterious blue mist swirled outward. As Nian emerged from the devouring dimension and returned to his living room, he heard some movement outside the doorway. It must be Wanda's return. However, what puzzled Nian was that his spider sense detected not only the footsteps of one person, but also those of another. Judging by the slowness of their steps, they seemed to be two petite girls. Oh, Wanda said last night she wanted to bring her classmates home to play, Nian recalled. With a quick wave of his hand, his red windbreaker instantly detached from his body, reverting to its original magical levitation cloak and flying back into the room. Nian, dressed in casual home clothes, adjusted his collar and sleeves briefly and traded his outdoor boots for slippers. As he finished, the door opened. I'm back. The first person to enter was, of course, Wanda, the crimson maid in a red dress, her hands clutching a heavy shopping bag that seemed unbelievably heavy for her age. Seeing Nian standing at the door, Wanda was surprised at first, then her face quickly flushed. She subconsciously covered her chest with her hands and lowered her head, not daring to look him in the eye. Master. Nian felt a little strange, as he hadn't done anything last night, but he still nodded and replied, I'm glad you're back. Master, I brought my classmate here. She's also my current deskmate. As Wanda spoke, a petite figure wearing the same uniform and a small dress walked in from behind her. Hello. Nian looked forward and was stunned when he saw the person standing behind Wanda. She was a young woman, about the same age and height as Wanda. She wore a white, corseted uniform top and a light gray, knee-length dress. Her flawless face seemed a little haughty and aloof. Her natural, dark green hair was tied into two ponytails. Her fair, slender legs were clad in white socks and black boots. A small black backpack was slung across her slender back. She looked like a well-behaved girl. But no way. Her name is Lorna. Wanda glanced at Nian curiously. Master, what do you think? No, I just think she looks a bit like you. Nian chuckled. My teachers and classmates have said the same thing, Wanda smiled. Of course not. Nian's eyes twitched. Lorna. This is my young master, Nian Prince, Wanda introduced her with great seriousness. Nice to meet you, Master Nian. Lorna's attitude was a bit aloof, yet polite enough. She extended her hand forward, as if meeting Nian for the first time. Nian almost thought he'd recognized the wrong person. Hello. Nian extended his hand and gently shook Lorna's. The moment they shook hands, Nian felt a light scratch on his palm. Startled, he met the girl's pale green eyes, which flashed a sly look. Nian's eyes twitched again. It's strange to recognize the wrong person. Wanda explained, Master, Lorna is just like that. She's even more introverted than I am at school. Apart from me, she barely interacts with anyone else. Really? Nian felt his perception crumble. It's strange that this girl is introverted. With her precociousness and social skills, she probably doesn't want to play with other kids her own age. Previously, Nian had thought of asking Alice or Guan Luo to help find the girl who had disappeared from downtown New York. He had never expected that. The person who had been standing nearby. Yes. Wasn't that Wanda's current classmate, the North Star boss? Nice to meet you, Lorna. Xinian's lips curled up slightly as he gazed at the girl before him. Long time no see, boss. I'm going to make lunch. Lorna, sit in the living room for a while. Wanda offered a glass of water and quickly hurried to the kitchen with her bag. Want to play a handheld game? Xinian pulled out her old Nintendo handheld and gestured. Sure, Lorna agreed casually. The two seemed to be getting along quite well. Wanda glanced out the kitchen door before retreating inside with confidence. After Wanda entered the kitchen, Xinian and Lorna sat side by side on the sofa. As he installed the handheld, he turned his head and whispered, Lorna, when did you start studying here? What did you say? Do we know each other? Lorna's pale green eyes blinked with curiosity. Boss, Xinian quickly corrected himself. That's right. Don't forget who you are, you idiot little brother. Lorna snorted, her cuteness and politeness gone, revealing her true nature. She said carelessly, I thought gangs were boring and had no future, so I disbanded. I just had nothing else to do, so I thought I'd go to school and experience it. Why didn't you tell me? I could have arranged it for you, Xinian said. No need. You, little brother, do you think you're my guardian? Lorna crossed her arms, her sharp fangs bared, and said firmly, I can do everything myself. I know, of course you can. Xinian didn't argue, knowing it would be useless. He blinked and said, but isn't it the boss's right to command his subordinates? That makes sense. Lorna instinctively made a move to take out a cigarette, startling Xinian, but he discovered the green-haired girl had only pulled out a lollipop. She peeled back the paper and took the candy in her mouth. Lorna seemed to have caught on. She glared at Xinian and snorted, chewing on a candy bar. Don't change the subject. You're the one making the arrangements, but you want to keep me farther away, right? Tell me, don't you want to see your boss? Xinian shook his head, remembering the scene he'd witnessed in the sanctuary. He smiled at the nearby green-haired girl and said sincerely, Boss, I'm so glad you came. I really am. He seemed to sense the fiery heat in the girl's eyes. Lorna, for once, didn't retort. She turned away, muttering disapprovingly, Little brother, touch my head again, and I'll beat you to pieces. Yes, boss. Xinian smiled, looking lovingly at the green-haired girl beside him. Boss, can you play the handheld game console? HMPH, there's nothing I can't do. Teach me first. While Wanda prepared lunch, Xinian and Lorna began playing the console. After a while, let's start the game. Is there a prize for the winner? Luna confidently switched to the free-for-all match, glaring at Xinian with a provocative look. Whoever wins can make a request, Xinian said casually. Anything is fine. Luna narrowed her pale green eyes, licking her pink lower lip coated in the shimmering syrup with her tongue, her twin ponytail swaying. Of course. Xinian was waiting for this, gripping the controller tightly. Now, there was no reason to lose. Chapter 235, Game with Polaris. Lorna. Boss. No special abilities allowed during the game. If the characters don't use special abilities, how can I fight? Just normal attacks. I mean, you're not allowed to use your own abilities. Oh, okay. I don't need those abilities to beat you. Lorna snorted proudly. Then let's begin. Xinian spoke casually, but he was secretly serious. He gripped the controller of the handheld game console firmly with both hands, his eyes fixed on the living room TV screen. Game on. 1 minute later. Game over. Watching her character being knocked out by the opposing character, Lorna's sharp fangs were exposed, and she glared at Xinian with a hint of gritted teeth. Damn it. Are there any other moves you haven't taught me? It's all written on the board. Haven't you already read it? Xinian said innocently, but he was actually laughing to himself. He hadn't expected the Polaris boss to be so poor at gaming, even less proficient than Wanda, who was just getting started with a game console. Xinian felt like he had taken it all for nothing. Boss, I accept a bet. Xinian glanced at the green-haired girl beside him. Tell me, what are your requests? Lorna happily tossed the handheld controller aside. She sat perfectly still, her small feet resting level with the sofa cushions. But with her arms folded across her chest, her domineering social aura suddenly emerged. You said, anything is fine. Xinian put down the handheld, leaning forward, his slightly burning eyes fixed closely on the lovely yet domineering green-haired girl before him. Whatever you want. Okay. As if realizing what Xinian wanted, Lorna raised her delicate white chin slightly. Her soft, smooth, Syrup-coated cheeks were completely at odds with her cold, small face. "Then I'll begin," Xinian said, extending his hands toward the green-haired girl. Feeling the approach of a slightly warm breath, Lorna instinctively closed her eyes, her tiny eyelashes trembling. "Master." Just then, Wanda, the maid in a white apron, emerged from the kitchen. Seeing the two of them huddled together on the living room sofa, her jewel-red eyes suddenly widened in surprise. Nian grabbed each of the girl's green ponytails with his hands, gently wrapping his fingers around them, feeling the silky, soft texture, and tugged and swung them like new toys. "I've been wanting to do this since you walked in," Nian breathed a sigh of relief. "You bastard little brother." Lorna's pale green eyes shone with irritation, but she caught sight of Wanda from the corner of her eye, and her lips curled in a mock, aggrieved expression. "Master, don't bully girls." Wanda, seeing this, quickly stepped forward to stop Nian's evil hands. "Okay." Xinian withdrew his hand, satisfied. But it was hard to say who was bullying whom. If Wanda hadn't appeared, Xinian felt he would have been severely bullied. "Lorna, are you okay?" Wanda asked concernedly. "It's okay. We were just playing a game and making a bet. You accept the loss." Lorna reluctantly replied, secretly glaring at Xinian. Wanda pulled Xinian aside and whispered, "Young master, don't bully me. You want to play? I'll wash it, and let you play." Although he knew that Wanda wasn't talking about that, Xinian's heart still skipped a beat. Who could resist that? Wanda's face flushed, and after she finished speaking, she returned to the kitchen. Xinian turned around and found Lorna on the sofa, staring at him coldly. "We're not done yet." Lorna understood. This stupid little brother didn't dare to kiss him now. After all, if his hair turned green, Wanda would easily notice. He didn't dare. "Boss, I was wrong," Xinian apologized bluntly. "You're right, I lost." Luna grabbed the handheld controller and said coldly, "Let's do it again." "Is this a habit of being a loser?" Xinian shrugged, but did not dare to offend the boss of Polaris, and picked up the controller. "Come on. No let up, I want to fight you fair and square." Luna was aggressive, the green hair behind her was glowing with a strange fluorescence, and the hair tied into two ponytails was almost breaking free from the hairband. So strong. Outside the balcony, Guan Luo opened his one eye and was secretly surprised. It had recognized her. The other party was the girl who had been to the rooftop here before and was later rescued by the demigod Nian. However, at that time, the other party was very weak, not as powerful as she is now. "Boss, you said it." Xinian was about to sit on the sofa next to the girl, but sensing Lorna on the sofa, she looked like a barrel of dynamite about to explode, so he sat down on the floor in front of the sofa. "Get ready," Xinian reminded Lorna from behind, then manipulated the handheld controller to select another round. The game began. Within 10 seconds, Lorna's character was immediately at a disadvantage. "I'm going to win again," Xinian thought. Then, two small feet wrapped in short white socks reached out from behind him, brushed past his shoulders, and landed lightly on his knees. Stunned, Xinian's character seemed to have been disconnected, caught by the opponent and subjected to several harsh combos, blood dripping down. "Foul, this is a foul. Boss, you, woo-woo." Xinian wanted to protest, but two slender, soft white legs draped over his shoulders, clamping his cheeks tightly, making it impossible for him to make a sound. Xinian's character froze, his health steadily draining. This was too much? Xinian gritted his teeth, his character's health dwindling to a thread. He held his breath, trying his best to ignore the girl's powerful interference. Fortunately, his skill was strong. From his low health, Xinian quickly staged a comeback, reducing his opponent's health to half. He could win. Xinian rested his head on the soft, white pads on his neck and cheeks, unmoved. Seeing his character about to be knocked to the ground again, Luna manipulated the controller with both hands, a cold glint in her pale green eyes. "Brother, watch this." She leaned forward, clamping her legs together, her white-socked feet stomped down continuously, and Xinian shuddered. His steely body wasn't afraid of pain, but his character, ready to attack, suddenly froze in place. A single basic attack from Luna's character depleted his health. His character was dead, and the game was over. So was Xinian. After lunch, the green-haired girl put on her boots, said goodbye, and left. "Lorna, come play again next time," Wanda said with a smile. Xinian stepped forward and touched Wanda's head. Knowing that she didn't want to reveal her true identity yet, He said sincerely to Luna at the door, "From now on, you can treat this place as your home. Come over whenever you want." Home? Luna's eyes flickered for a moment, and then she nodded politely. "Okay, I'll remember that." She clasped her hands behind her back, puffed out her slightly bulging chest, looked at him meaningfully, and said, "See you next time, Nian." "Master." "See you next time, Luna." Nian's heart skipped a beat. He still owed her a request. However, there was nothing he could do. After all, that move was too unsolvable. Chapter 236, First Visit to Gotham, Hardcore Date. A week later, it was Saturday. A patter of rain fell, soaking the streets. A dark-haired boy, draped in a dark blue windbreaker, leaned against the train platform. His features weren't particularly handsome, but they were distinctly refined and endearing. His modest figure held up the uniform and windbreaker perfectly. Outside, he wouldn't have attracted much attention. The only thing that struck him was the brightness and clarity of his brown eyes, even in the rainy weather. "Thank goodness Alice told me in advance. It's cloudy today, and there's a chance it'll rain." The dark-haired boy stood at the edge of the platform, calmly raising his black umbrella. Just as he was about to open it and leave the station, there was a snap. A large suitcase flipped over beside him, accidentally opening. Several small white figures shimmered out of it, fluttering and soaring into the gray, rain-soaked sky outside the station. Boom! A flash of purple lightning, like a dragon or snake, slithered across the sky, instantly illuminating the station and much of the bustling city below. A white bird, defying the wind and rain, vanished into the city. "Mom, look! It's a pigeon!" A little girl in the station cried joyfully, and many eyes turned toward the young man. Nian glanced sideways, watching as several pure white feathers fluttered to the ground. The suitcase belonged to a woman in her 20s. She had long, slightly curly black hair, a purple scarf, a white shirt, a black jacket, and seamless jeans. She wore a pair of square black glasses and high-heeled black leather boots. Her figure was mature and round, and her face was of the highest quality. But perhaps because of her attire, she looked a bit rustic and old-fashioned, as if deliberately concealing something. The woman, lugging suitcases and boxes, apologized profusely to the disturbed passers-by while frantically packing her fallen suitcase, looked even more tacky and naive. Nian stepped forward to help pick up the fallen hat and scarf, brushing off the dust. "Thank you, thank you." The woman hurriedly bowed and thanked Nian. Her purple scarf draped against the white background, highlighting her rounded features, so large they seemed to burst forth. In Nian's mind, only Felicia could rival hers. Nian didn't stare at her for a moment, but quickly looked away, glancing at the hat in her hand. Curiously, "Are you a magician?" "No, I'm just a magician's assistant." The woman adjusted her glasses and said helplessly, "With my appearance and demeanor, I don't look like a magician." "I think you'd be a perfect fit," Nian said honestly. While magicians are often mysterious, intelligent, and eccentric, he did think the woman before him was a good fit. "Really? Thank you. I'm working towards that goal, too." The woman gave Nian a grateful look, then sized him up and asked, "Little brother, are you from here?" Nian shook his head and said bluntly, "I'm just here for a date." "Oh, a date? That's impressive." The woman sighed. Just then, a black car pulled up outside the station, its red flashers on. "My pickup is here. I should leave now." After a brief farewell, Nian watched the man board the car and leave. "It's time for me to leave too." Nian didn't stop, but opened his black umbrella and followed suit. Outside, the rain continued to patter. Between the dark sky and the dark city, a hazy gray mist seemed to linger. Between this gray mist and the hazy vapor, skyscrapers, both retro and modern, soared into the sky. Under the dim lights, the city resembled a dark forest. The densely woven elevated light rail lines between the buildings highlighted the city's advanced transportation system, yet as if technology and living standards had leapt so rapidly, many aspects of the city itself still retained a modern, retro feel. Churches, towers, statues, iron lamps dotted the streets. Traffic passed silently, and neon lights cast a brilliant, cold glow, reflected in the puddles on the road. Dark tones and rainy weather seemed a constant fixture here. Yes, this was Gotham. It's really different from other cities. Nian thought to himself. This city, as developed as New York, seemed like a New York shrouded in darkness and mystery. Should we be there? Where's everyone? Nian reached the agreed intersection, glanced around, and then pulled out his phone to check the time. It was exactly 11 o'clock in the morning. But the weather and the location of Gotham made him mistakenly think it was 11 o'clock in the evening. Now, Gotham City, thousands of meters above. The thunderclouds continued to gather, growing larger and larger, nearly enveloping the entire city. Boom! The sky roared, and several streaks of purple lightning crashed down with a terrifying roar. A human figure stood in the center of the thundercloud, illuminating it. Her red cape and short skirt fluttered, her dark golden hair dancing gracefully as the godlike girl hovered in the center of the thundercloud. She ignored the lightning, fearless of the wind and rain. "This weather won't do," Supergirl muttered to herself. Her face was serious, and she clenched her soft pink right fist. She thrust outward. Boom! The force field radiated with incredible force, surging the air in layers, creating a powerful shockwave that instantly shattered the thunderclouds tens of thousands of meters away. The sky seemed to be torn apart by force. A corner of the sky suddenly cleared, and bright sunlight streamed down. Not enough. Supergirl continued to move, transforming into a tornado, piercing and clearing the surrounding dark clouds. Has the rain stopped? Standing at the intersection, Nian reached out his hand. Noticing no rain was falling, he folded his black umbrella and looked up. The city sky was clear, a brilliant blue, as if washed clean. Golden sunlight streamed down unimpeded. It's actually clearing up. On the street, many Gotham residents, umbrellas and raincoats in hand, were surprised. Gotham doesn't get this kind of sunny day very often. And it was still raining halfway, so it suddenly cleared up. Strange. "Senior, this way." Nian didn't think twice. He looked in the direction of the familiar voice calling out. At the opposite intersection, white blonde hair gleamed in the sunlight. A beautiful young woman in a short skirt, her slender legs wrapped in black stockings, waved sweetly at him. "Coming, Kara." Nian smiled, waved, and walked away from the crowd. It was Supergirl Kara who had invited him to downtown Gotham this weekend. This was Nian's first time in Gotham. I'd heard about it before, or seen it on TV news, but it was no less economical than New York City. First time here, wasn't it good? If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 237 Gotham does not allow such a powerful person. Under the bright and glorious sun, the fog that had lingered over Gotham City dissipated, revealing its original appearance. Magnificent skyscrapers stood in a sea of buildings, rich with the atmosphere of culture and history. Locals and passers-by, mostly dressed in work uniforms in a predominantly dark gray and black palette, resembled a silent film from an old era. While its prosperity rivaled that of any modern city, the street noise was quieter than that of second- and third-tier cities. People hurried about, rarely speaking. This was perhaps a hangover from its former status as a crime capital. 20 years ago, Gotham City, once the world's fastest-growing metropolis, boasted a vast network of elevated rail transit systems seemingly overnight. This rapid economic and technological development also gave rise to the seemingly glamorous Gotham City, a breeding ground for extreme crime. Even the former patriarch of the Wayne Enterprise, the city's most prestigious figure, was gunned down in the street by a gangster. Soaring crime rates and a city mired in decay made Gotham residents terrified of the mere sight of gunfire at night. Every night, crimes erupted on the streets, leaving the local police helpless. Until, over a decade ago, a bat legend quietly took root in the city. Fighting violence with violence, the Dark Knight would subdue even the most ruthless criminals. Batman, first as Gotham's urban legend, spread throughout the city, becoming a terrifying deterrent to crime. Even now, with the establishment of Arkham Asylum and the establishment of the National Penitentiary, while crime, like the ineradicable scourge of cockroaches and rats, has been curbed to some extent. On the bustling streets of Gotham City, a white-haired girl affectionately embraced a black-haired boy's arm. Like an ordinary young couple, they strolled through the streets of downtown Gotham. Looking at the sweet, delicate young woman next to him, Nian secretly lamented that few in the city knew of her superwoman identity. Her seemingly boneless hands could easily shatter a building or a mountain. A slender figure, so fearless of breaking. "Kara, what's the bet you made with Gwen?" Zinnian asked curiously. This time, Gwen actually knew Kara had asked her out before he did. This wasn't normal. Senior, it's a secret between girls, Kara winked as she ate her strawberry popsicle, her soft, pink tongue stained with the milky white, and said playfully. Okay, Zinnian shrugged. Then why did you choose Gotham as the date? Can you tell me? Kara smiled but didn't respond. Instead, she gestured towards a spot. Look over there. Zinnian followed Kara's finger and saw two boys chasing each other in the park nearby. One was holding a plastic object shaped like a bat blade, the other was wearing a small piece of red cloth that looked like a red cape. A slowly passing bus also had a poster of Supergirl, draped in a red cape, flying like a bullet. The vibrant red stood out against the dark tones of Gotham City. Zinnian suddenly realized that this was his chance to test his results. Back then, it was you, Senior, who encouraged me to stay true to myself, Kara said with a smile. I didn't know you were from Krypton back then. Zinnian spread his hands. Also, even though I've been in Gotham City on weekends these past few weeks, I haven't really walked the streets properly, so I wanted to use this data as a chance to experience it. Kara felt a little distressed, then looked at Zinnian. Senior, don't you like Gotham City? Not really, Zinnian shook his head. He had almost accepted Butler Alfu's suggestion and moved to Gotham City. He paused, then said, even if you didn't invite me to Gotham, I would have come here anyway. What do you mean? Kara looked at Zinnian in confusion. You'll find out soon. Zinnian looked down at Kara's hand and warned, your ice cream will melt you if you don't eat it now. Ah. A girl's exclamation echoed over the street. Night fell. A veil of darkness descended over the bustling Gotham City, and the neon lights lit up. A young man and a young woman, finishing their dinner, emerged from the entrance of a steakhouse. What do you want to play next? Nian hadn't finished speaking when the dark blonde girl suddenly raised her eyes, her gaze solemn, toward the sky over one side of the city. In the distance, a bright beam of light from a searchlight shot upward, imprinting a bat icon on the night sky. Looking at the icon in the distant night sky, Kara's eyes flashed with a sharp and hesitant look. Go if you want to, Nian said bluntly, knowing her hesitation. But do what you want to do. Nian interrupted Kara, groping in his windbreaker pocket and pulling out a small jellyfish that resembled a glass ball. He handed it to the girl. Take this with you. Okay, Senior, I'll be back soon. Kara took the jellyfish in her hands and, in front of Nian, unbuttoned her white shirt. As the shirt opened to the sides, she revealed a tight-fitting battlesuit underneath. Supergirl's exclusive battlesuit. The S-shaped family logo supported the smooth curve. Boo. As the sound barrier broke nearby, Kara vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving a shirt and skirt in Nian's hands. Nian quickly withdrew his gaze from the Gotham City night sky. He folded the clothes in his hands, wrapped his dark blue windbreaker around himself, and muttered inexplicably, all right. Mofu, Guanluo, Alice, it's time to get moving. Nian turned and walked into an alley. His blue windbreaker quickly turned a dark black, as if fading into the dense night. A strong wind suddenly blew from the depths of the alley, and a black figure soared into the sky, heading towards the city area opposite the searchlights. 5 minutes later. In downtown Gotham, at a hidden speakeasy with a sign indicating closed. A silver-haired young man in a black windbreaker tried to enter, but was quickly stopped by two shirtless, tattooed men. This place is closed, one of the tattooed men said. I'm here for an appointment, the silver-haired young man said calmly, his expression unwavering. The other burly man sized him up and said in a deep voice, code. Kill Superman. The silver-haired young man smiled faintly, his eyes flashing with an icy cold light. Go in. The two tattooed men exchanged a glance and made way for the barrel-like bodies. The silver-haired young man in the windbreaker successfully entered the underground bar. Before he could officially step inside, a man's cold shout rang out from inside the bar. We in Gotham won't allow such a powerful person to exist. Chapter 238, The Battle Against Supergirl. Why are you yelling so loud? Are you afraid they can't hear you? If they can, run for your lives. HMPH. I'm just expressing my opinion, isn't it? I believe everyone else agrees. Inside a Gotham speakeasy bar, which required a code to enter, a group of men and women were arguing and chatting. When a silver-haired young man entered, the bar fell silent, and everyone cast scrutinizing glances at him. Who's this? I don't know him, a stranger. So young. Is there such a prominent figure in Gotham? Someone take him down? This information can't be leaked. He. Questions, sneers, a cold stare, talking about murder seemed commonplace, and a thick murderous aura lingered from everyone. At the slightest disagreement, they were ready to kill. The sound of loaded guns mingled with the sound. The silver-haired young man paused at the bar entrance, feeling like a sheep entering a den of wolves. Chuckles. A woman's laughter suddenly echoed from the bar's reception desk, instantly easing the murderous atmosphere. The silver-haired young man's expression remained unchanged. Following the sound of laughter, he looked to see a beautiful woman with red hair and a green dress standing at the bar's reception desk. Her hair color and attire were somewhat reminiscent of Mara from the Undersea Empire. However, her overall appearance and demeanor were completely different. If Mara were the cool, dignified, and proud mermaid of the sea, the woman in question was a forest elf, a fallen one. Her scarlet hair cascaded down her shoulders in waves, her delicate features breathtakingly beautiful and alluring. Her green, strapless, cinched-waisted tulle dress resembled bedding, barely concealing her vitals, revealing a vast expanse of alluring whiteness. Under the bar lights, her graceful figure was faintly visible beneath the green tulle dress, a truly exquisite beauty. "Young man, what are you doing here?" The woman in the green dress licked her rosy lips and said seductively to the silver-haired young man, "If you don't tell me, I'll kill you for them. But don't worry, I'll make your death very comfortable." Her voice, captivating and alluring, stirred the imagination. The silver-haired young man countered, "Don't everyone here want to do one thing? What else can they do?" "Haha, you." Someone in the bar immediately raised a questioning voice. The silver-haired young man laughed, "If anyone among you could kill Superman single-handedly, they would have done it long ago. Why are you wasting time discussing this here?" "You." The man choked. Someone else in the bar agreed with the young man, "He's absolutely right. We need enough forces to unite. Anyone who's willing can participate." Someone else expressed their concerns, "The main thing is that he's so young and unfamiliar. How about this? Let me test him, okay?" The woman in the green dress glanced at the patrons in the bar and smiled. "Sure. I trust Poison Ivy's work. Let's do this." "Interesting." Everyone in the bar was immediately intrigued. "How do you want to test him?" The silver-haired young man looked at the receptionist, "Poison Ivy. It's simple." Poison Ivy took out a small wine glass, poured a little into it, and placed it on the bar with a smile. "Drink it." The wine was a pale green under the light. "Tisk, tisk, Poison Ivy's wine. I don't even dare to drink it." "Boy, if you dare to drink it, I'll recognize you." "Good boy, your stomach won't rot, will it?" The people in the bar were talking. But before they could discuss further, the silver-haired young man stepped forward, picked up the wine glass, and drank it all in one gulp. "That's enough." The silver-haired young man turned the glass upside down, and there was not a drop left. "Okay." Poison Ivy smiled slightly, gave him a wink, and announced, "Hey, young man, I guarantee it. Anyone who touches her in this bar is disrespecting me." The patrons in the bar were immediately shocked. To them, this was not a beautiful and charming woman, but a woman with thorns all over her body, and poisonous ones at that. Under Poison Ivy's guarantee, the silver-haired young man gained entry to the bar and took a seat in a corner. This was just a minor incident. "Now that everything's settled, let's get back to the original topic," a bearded man said gravely. "The battle plan against Supergirl." "That's right. Those who would be arriving at this bar tonight were all Gotham's most evil individuals. It didn't matter who was convening them, what mattered was that they all had the same goal. The reason, once again, stemmed from a single statement: Gotham can't tolerate such a powerful being. In fact, for over a decade, thanks to Batman's presence, Gotham City's justice and evil have remained on equal footing. Batman is indeed powerful, but there are limits. No matter how powerful he is, he's still human and needs rest and sleep. For example, when Batman used to punish crime in Gotham's East Side, the rest of Gotham was relatively safe from crime. But that concept didn't apply to Supergirl, who had just arrived in the city as a hero trainee. A second ago, Supergirl might just appear in the East Side, but the next moment, she could be in the West Side, dismantling your weapons and taking down your base with her bare hands. When it comes to crime, a hero as overly powerful as Supergirl is practically a bug. The tactics you normally use to playfully play with Batman are rarely of any use. Some are calling Supergirl a goddess now. So, How do you plan to harm a god? So, aren't you discussing countermeasures now? Modern weapons are useless against such a powerful metahuman. Damn. I didn't expect there would be another Kryptonian. In the corner of the bar, Nian, disguised as a silver-haired young man by Mofu, listened to their heated discussions and felt a sense of novelty and strangeness. Hearing the bar's frantic discussions, he mistakenly believed that Supergirl Kara was the villain. Nian had learned this through the AI Alice's decryption of the dark web. Tonight in Gotham, this bar would be holding a meeting to discuss a campaign against Supergirl, and everyone was welcome to participate. He was just interested and wanted to join in. Guanluo, help me contact Alice at home and confirm the identities of everyone on the scene. Nian used his mind to contact Guanluo through the second jellyfish fragment he carried with him. But at that moment, the door to the bar opened. Another person arrived to join the battle. Nian looked up, a strange look in his eyes. It was an acquaintance. Chapter 239 Goodbye Harley Quinn, Dangerous Woman. Good evening, everyone. A young woman with dazzling twin tails, a vest top and hip-hugging shorts, her fair body covered in erotic tattoos, a black cloth like a pet collar around her slender neck, and translucent white gloves on her hands, adorned with clown makeup, entered the bar. She flashed a wild yet captivating smile, unfazed, like a master herself, glancing back at everyone. Wow, this place is really lively. Poison Ivy, long time no see. Have a drink. Isn't that dead shit? I remember seeing you in the heavy prison. Captain Boomerang. Oh my god, you're still alive. Killer Croc, are you okay? The young woman knew everyone in the bar like the back of her hand. Some, who had initially tried to conceal their identities, were afraid to speak out after being exposed. Don't be fooled by her frail appearance. Once she got mad, she was more furious than anyone else. Poison Ivy, standing at the bar's reception desk, glanced at the twin-tailed girl with a hint of surprise. She pursed her red lips and said, Harley Quinn, it's been a while. Aren't you imprisoned in the dream prison? Don't blame me for not saving you. I'm truly powerless there. Harley Quinn chuckled, you've been through some shit and escaped. How about buying me a drink? Honey, not just one, 10 or 100 would be fine, Poison Ivy said. 2 then, I'm here with my friends. Harley called out to the bar's entrance, come in, men. There was no response. As if realizing something, Harley hurried out, only to hear her voice from outside, those are security guards, don't eat. Come in, I'll take you to something delicious. A moment later, 2 tall, burly men ran in panic. They were the security guards who had been guarding the bar's entrance. Their faces were pale, as if they had witnessed something truly horrific. And then, Harley entered, dragging a 2-meter-tall, non-human creature. Shark. Many exclaimed in surprise. A sturdy, round body, a bluish-white crust, tiny eyes, and sharp teeth. That was a shark, wasn't it? Unlike normal sharks, this alien creature had 2 arms and 2 legs, and could walk like a human. Eat something delicious. The shark's eyes rolled slightly, saliva dripping from the corners of its mouth. It looked dazed and cute, yet it scanned the crowd with the gaze of a predator. A chill ran down the spines of many in the bar. There's a party going on here, so of course there's something delicious, Harley said, smiling at the crowd. Let me introduce you to Shark King Enna, my new friend. Harley Quinn, Shark King Enna. Nian, in the corner of the bar, narrowed his eyes. He hadn't expected to encounter him again in Gotham City since their previous encounter on the island. After all, he had released the shark himself, even though he had been in a 3-in-1 state. Harley Quinn, are you interested in taking on Supergirl too? A customer asked. Supergirl, why should I? Harley sat down at the bar, her attitude as casual as a sip of her drink. If you don't want to take on Supergirl, then what are you doing here? Someone finally lost their temper. They were all extremely evil, and while they didn't want to provoke Harley Quinn, they weren't afraid of her either. Come over for a drink and dinner? That's fine. Harley shrugged casually and asked King Shark, who was standing nearby. Nanoi, are you going to go with them to take on Supergirl? Supergirl. King Shark tilted his head, as if remembering something, and shuddered. No, Nanoi is no match for her. That's it. You guys keep going, ignore us too. Harley laughed wildly, and actually ordered 2 dinners from Poison Ivy. Since Nanoi couldn't fit on the bar stool, Harley took him downstairs, choosing a seat not far from Nian. Although Harley Quinn wasn't here to fight Supergirl, they knew she wouldn't side with her, so everyone attending the war meeting could only ignore her presence. Meanwhile, with the help of Guan Luo and Alice, Nian also obtained the identities of those present. He knew Harley Quinn and Nunavie, the Shark King. In the bar, only a few people were worth noting. Nian's eyes quietly fell on the graceful figure in a green dress at the front desk. Poison Ivy. She had teamed up with Harley Quinn to repeatedly plunder Gotham's property, making her a renowned criminal underworld queen. SHIELD intelligence reports indicate that she was more than just a scheming femme fatale. Due to her chlorophyll-rich body, she possessed the ability to manipulate plants and release toxins. Release toxins, so that's it. Nian belatedly realized that this was the meaning of the drink. Unfortunately, poisoning someone with a Man of Steel was a bit too difficult. And that. Nian's gaze shifted from Poison Ivy to the other figures in the bar. A sturdy, bald man silently wiped the sniper rifle in his hand. His name was Deadshot. He was a top-tier mercenary assassin, a source of headaches for even SHIELD agents, and his profile showed he never missed a shot. A man in a black cape, his skin as hard and rough as a crocodile. His name was Killer Croc. He had participated in a military genetic modification experiment, transforming into a crocodile-like monster. He possessed extraordinary strength and stamina, as well as fangs and claws. And there were also thugs like Captain Boomerang, whose combat prowess wasn't particularly impressive. Nian paid them no attention, but repeatedly fixed his gaze on a woman. She was a stunning blonde with a model-like figure, dressed conservatively in a shirt and trousers. She sat alone in a dark corner on the other side of the bar. As if sensing his gaze, the blonde woman glanced at him, a hint of doubt in her eyes. Nian looked away. Joan Moon. According to SHIELD's profile, he was just an archaeologist with no criminal record. This meant that the other party had at least received the approval of the bar's most vicious criminals to enter. And there was another point. Since Nian entered the bar, she was the only one who had triggered the spider sense warning. That woman was dangerous. In other words, all the other bar patrons combined were not as dangerous as the woman in front of her. Was the other party also planning to attack Supergirl Kara? Just as Nian was thinking this, a delicate face with clown makeup leaned in close. "Hi, who are you?" Harley asked with a wink. Chapter 240 Superman's Weakness, Is He the Cat Boss? Harley rested her hands on the table, leaning forward, her twin ponytails cascading down. Her large, scrutinizing eyes fixed him intently. "Strange, I've never seen you before. There are so many people in the world, it's normal I haven't," Nian replied expressionlessly. "That's true." Harley nodded, then added, "But if you were in Gotham, I couldn't have been unaware of you." "I'm just a nobody," Nian shook his head. "Really?" Harley's eyes flickered with suspicion. Before she could say anything else, a graceful green figure approached. "Harley, your dinner order." Poison Ivy placed the plates of food on the table in front of Harley and King Shark, each with its own elegant demeanor. "Besides, I'm his guarantor." Poison Ivy smiled at Nian, a truly alluring smile. "In that case, I won't attack him." Harley's expression was pensive, her attention shifting from Nian as she picked up her knife and fork and began to enjoy her dinner. Gulp. King Shark, standing next to him, opened his mouth wide and devoured the entire meal, along with a plate, in a single gulp. He then patted his pale belly, finding it barely bloated. Inside the bar, the battle plan meeting entered its final stages. Captain Boomerang suddenly snorted, "Don't forget. Even Superman has a fatal and obvious weakness." This statement would have been fine by anyone else, but not by Captain Boomerang, a figure unwelcome even among Gotham's most evil. Many people ignored him. "Look, what is this?" Captain Boomerang smiled nonchalantly. He pinned a boomerang to the table like a dagger, reached into his pocket, fumbled around, and pulled out a ring box. "You're not proposing here, are you?" "Don't be ridiculous, Boomerang," someone scoffed. But when Captain Boomerang opened the ring box, everyone was stunned. A shimmering emerald light emanated, and in the center of the box lay a small green object. It resembled an emerald, but with a dazzling, mysterious green glow. It instantly became the center of attention in the bar. "My God, how did you get it?" Killer Croc couldn't help but stand up, staring intently at the green object. Could it be that thing? Some people were even more stunned. "It seems we've come to the right place tonight," Nian thought to himself, looking at the green object. Yes, it's what you were thinking of, kryptonite. Captain Boomerang held up the glowing green box and said firmly, "It's just a small amount, but it's more than enough to make a bullet." Deadshot said solemnly, "Give it to me, and I can guarantee it will hit Supergirl." No one in the bar questioned this. Of course, the most important strategic weapon must be placed in the hands of those who can maximize its power, Captain Boomerang declared, closing the box containing the small kryptonite pieces and tossing it to Deadshot. "Is everyone confident now?" Captain Boomerang raised his head, smug. A brief silence fell over the bar. They would never believe that a gangster like Captain Boomerang could obtain something of this magnitude. Clearly, there was someone behind this supposedly free-for-all. However, this was also an opportunity to kill or expel Supergirl. Many people immediately made a decision. A makeshift battle plan, centered around the kryptonite bullet, was quickly formed. The bar's inhabitants split into teams, pretending to be criminal gangs to attract Supergirl's attention and lure them to a specific encirclement point. Deadshot, hiding in the shadows, would then deliver the fatal counterattack with the kryptonite bullets. Of course, another team had to distract or intercept Batman to buy time. Horizontal ellipsis. Nian was assigned to the decoy team, led by Killer Croc. Captain Boomerang led the second decoy team. As for the woman who alerted Nian to the danger, June Moon, she was assigned to the third makeshift team, tasked with guiding or intercepting Batman. Deadshot was on his own with a few helpers. The battle plan was drawn up, the teams assigned, and the group, disguised, left through the back door of the bar. Horizontal ellipsis. The once bustling speakeasy was suddenly deserted, with only 3 people remaining. "Everyone's leaving? Honey, aren't you going to join in the fun?" Harley waved at Poison Ivy, who remained at the front desk, bored. "I'm not interested. I just lent them the space." Poison Ivy shook her head. "How about we take advantage of them luring superheroes and make a real splash?" Harley rubbed her hands in anticipation. "Good suggestion. But I have other things to do tonight," Poison Ivy declined. "Really? That's a shame." Harley looked regretful, her eyes dimmed, as if her happiness had vanished. At that moment, Harley spotted Nanoi, sprawled over the chair where the silver-haired young man had been sitting. Chew, chew. Nanoi's nose twitched, and he licked the chair with his tongue. "Nanoi, what are you doing?" Harley was stunned. "Are you that hungry? You even want to eat a chair?" Nanoi put the chair down, his eyes aglow, and he said excitedly, "The smell of Boss Cat." "What are you talking about? How could he be?" Harley was mid-sentence when she froze. Just now. Harley had indeed never seen the silver-haired young man before, but she felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity from him, which was why she approached him to talk. Everything connected. It was him. Under Poison Ivy's somewhat stunned gaze, Harley suddenly kicked over the table and, unable to control herself, rushed to the bar. "Tell me, who is that guy just now?" Anger, resentment, gratitude, all kinds of emotions were on Harley's face. Poison Ivy had never seen Harley so overwhelmed. "You mean the guy?" Poison Ivy said bluntly. "I don't know him." "Damn it. Didn't you say you were his guarantor?" Harley placed her hands on the table and stared at Poison Ivy coldly. "I only guaranteed him because he had the courage to drink my wine." Poison Ivy's face was solemn, and she asked in confusion, "Who is he to you?" "He did this." Harley reached out and pulled off the black silk scarf that looked like a necklace, revealing the fair and intact neck of the beauty. However, there was a conspicuous cat's paw print on the side. "Now I can't come into contact with anyone. Once I do, this mark will kill the other person directly. You should know this feeling very well since your body is covered with plant toxins, right?" Harley said with a cold face, "No matter what, I have to find him and ask him clearly why he cursed me." Chapter 241 Inducing Supergirl. He. Poison Ivy covered her mouth and laughed, her charming laughter swaying her curvaceous figure. Harley Quinn slapped the bar counter as if someone had stepped on her. Bang, bang, she yelled angrily, "What are you laughing at? Gotham's queen of crime has fallen for such a young man. Isn't that fascinating?" Poison Ivy licked her rosy, alluring lips, exhaling a soft, seductive breath. "Last time, he was just a cat. Who knew?" Harley glared at Poison Ivy fiercely, then hesitated, wrapping the black scarf around her neck again. "Since you don't know his identity, I won't waste my time here with you. Nanoi, let's go." Harley waved her hand, her dyed twin ponytail swirling, and she hurried through the back door of the bar. King Shark wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, glanced at Poison Ivy, and followed Harley's figure with his short legs. The two chased after the crowd in the direction they had left the bar. The speakeasy fell silent once more. "This is getting interesting," Poison Ivy muttered to herself. There was one thing she hadn't told Harley Quinn: her wine wasn't that simple. Poison Ivy casually picked up a tray of indoor plants from the front desk, her crimson hair flowing. She turned and walked into the kitchen, her figure lightly wrapped in a cinched green dress, quickly disappearing into the darkness. Meanwhile, on the other side, outside, in Gotham City, shrouded in darkness, a gray van was speeding along the highway. Killer Croc, the captain of the first decoy team, a man in crocodile skin and a menacing expression, sat in the passenger seat of the van with a commanding presence. A silver-haired young man, disguised as Nian, sat in the second row, flanked by two burly men. "Wait a minute. Once we reach our destination, follow my orders," Killer Croc said coldly. As captain, anyone who disobeys orders will be the first to be killed. Killer Croc was a ruthless man of few words, his murderous aura evident in his words. Everyone in the car nodded. Nian understood the significance of this team assignment. Killer Croc, first a soldier and then a biochemically modified being, had, during the bar meeting, been the most powerful and physically imposing being. Furthermore, as a former soldier, Killer Croc possessed strict discipline ingrained in his bones. Therefore, he was the perfect person to lead the luring mission. "Let me make one request, and it's the most crucial part of this mission," Killer Croc said in a hoarse, calm, and forceful voice. "After successfully luring the target out, everyone, immediately halt your actions, lower your weapons, and raise your hands in surrender." Nian and the other teammates were stunned. "Do you understand?" Killer Croc glanced indifferently at everyone in the car. He was luring the target, not committing suicide. He was supposed to arm wrestle Supergirl. Was he really qualified? Killer Croc was quite self-aware of this. "Understood," everyone responded. "I have a question," a voice suddenly echoed from within the car. Suddenly, Killer Croc and the others' gazes fell on the silver-haired young man. "How can we be sure we can lure our target out? What if it's Batman or another superhero? Didn't we mention that in the meeting?" Killer Croc's eyes flickered. "If we fail, there's a second team. If we lure Batman out, the third backup team will continue the mission. Isn't it just luring Supergirl? Why make it so complicated?" Nian smiled. "What are your ideas?" Killer Croc looked at Nian coldly, as if he would kill him for even a worthless suggestion. Nian said slowly, "I do have a half-baked idea, just for your reference." 10 minutes later. A local Gotham bank was robbed by several masked robbers. The lead robber shattered the bulletproof window with a single punch, while the other robbers skillfully took hostages and collected piles of cash. However, before the police arrived, on the rooftop of the bank building, a spotlight lit up. A beam of light, as bright as day, shone upward, projecting an icon across the night sky. Passers-by, several blocks away, could see it. However, the icon wasn't a familiar bat, but a capital S. It was the exclusive totem of the Superman clan. The robber boss had no desire to collect the banknotes and gold bars. Standing at the bank entrance, he gazed up at the illuminated totem against the Gotham night sky, his unwavering will trembling even with his own unyielding will. This wasn't a plea for help, but a provocation. Killer Croc coldly addressed a nearby masked robber, "Your suggestion is a good one. But remember, don't try any other tricks." The masked robber nodded, remaining silent. Killer Croc was about to say something, but at that moment, the rooftop spotlight suddenly went out. Then, a beat later, the sound of breaking wind could be heard. Killer Croc's face darkened, and he growled, "Everyone, get out. Quickly." Hearing his words, he snarled. The robbers inside all dropped their cash and followed Killer Croc out the bank. Almost as soon as they stepped through the doorway, a graceful figure descended from the sky with a thud, her red cape fluttering, her dark blonde hair flowing, her pale golden eyes calm yet piercing. Without even looking up, everyone in the room knew. "She's coming." Everyone, hold still. Just wait here until the police arrive." A beautiful girl in a blue top and red skirt smiled softly, looking at Killer Croc and the others, and counting softly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 robbers. 4, weren't there 5 of them? Killer Croc froze, quickly glancing at his teammates, and quickly confirming the situation. The silver-haired young man from earlier was gone. That guy was indeed problematic. However, with Supergirl now appearing and standing in the designated decoy spot, their mission was a success. Now is the time. Shoot now, deadshit. Killer Croc remained silent, his thoughts racing. At this moment, 1,000 meters away from the bank, the top floor window of a high-rise building was slightly open, and a pitch-black metal pipe jutted out towards the city outside. Death Shooter leaned down, tightly gripping the high-precision sniper rifle, and loaded a special kryptonite bullet that shone with a green glow. He adjusted his breathing, and his heart rate seemed to drop a lot, like a robot. In the sniper rifle's lens, the crosshairs were aimed at the back of Supergirl's head 1,000 meters away. Kryptonite bullets, long-range sniping, this is the only known effective means of attack against the Superman family. Even Bloodsport had a record of severely injuring Superman with kryptonite bullets. Death Shooter believed that he could definitely do it. Now, Death Shooter sensed the wind direction, and after brewing, he decisively pulled the trigger of the sniper rifle. Chapter 242 Supergirl Kara's Transformation. Silenced, a specially crafted bullet, gleaming green, shot from the muzzle, piercing the air and transforming into a thin streak of green light that streaked across the sky above the city, hurtling towards its target at high speed. Hit. Deadshot was incredibly confident in his marksmanship. The moment he pulled the trigger, he knew the bullet would definitely hit its target, but then, something happened to his astonishment. A dark figure flashed across the sky above the city, as if accidentally struck by the bullet. After being hit by the bullet, the humanoid figure plummeted towards the city. No. Damn it. Deadshot's eyes instantly turned red. That was a kryptonite bullet. The only kryptonite bullet. And someone had caught it. Deadshot was so frustrated that he felt like vomiting blood. Whoosh. The humanoid figure plummeted in a parabolic arc, out of sight, and abruptly stopped 10 meters above the ground. The black windbreaker floated freely. Zinnian touched his chest. The clothing there was torn, but the leather underneath was intact. That shot really hurt. Zinnian grasped the kryptonite bullet and played with it. He had left jellyfish fragments with various task forces, so he knew where each one was. Knowing the key was the kryptonite, Zinnian immediately dealt with the problem with Deadshot. Recovery successful. From now on, leave everything to Kara. Zinnian put the kryptonite bullet in his pocket. Without it, the Kryptonians were practically invincible in Gotham. At least, no one in the bar tonight could threaten Kara. No, Zinnian thought back to the female archaeologist and asked, Guan Luo, how's the situation with the third team? I was just about to report to you. Guan Luo's mental consciousness echoed, the jellyfish fragments that followed the third team have died. Were they discovered? Zinnian asked quickly. Guan Luo, no, they were completely destroyed. Zinnian was stunned. Guan Luo continued, that female archaeologist named Joan Moon suddenly erupted with an ominous energy and intent. Then, all the members of her team died instantly, including the jellyfish fragments attached to one of them. So, you don't know where she is now? Zinnian said solemnly. Master, I know. Before Guan Luo could respond, Zinnian's phone lit up, and Alice's voice rang out, she's currently at an archaeological dig site in Colorado. The surveillance cameras there captured Joan Moon 5 seconds ago. Colorado. Zinnian's eyes narrowed slightly. Colorado is over 1,000 kilometers away from Gotham City. This means that after killing her teammates in Gotham, she instantly appeared at an archaeological site thousands of kilometers away. However, does this mean that she has no intention of attacking Kara? Alice, continue to monitor her, Zinnian instructed. Yes, Master, Alice replied. Guan Luo's mind suddenly rang out, Zinnian, there's an emergency with Team 2. You tell me. Kryptonite. They have a second kryptonite. Whoa. Several police cars finally arrived at the crime scene outside the bank. A bespectacled, mustachioed officer stepped out. Seeing Supergirl single-handedly surrounding several robbers, he wanted to grumble, you're so quick, it makes us look foolish. Fortunately, no one had tampered with the scene this time. Commissioner Gordon glanced at the intact construction site, his heart finally settling. These robbers were quite sensible. Meanwhile, Killer Croc was filled with despair. What is Deadshot doing? Why isn't he taking action? Killer Croc roared inwardly. The opportunity was about to be lost. Meanwhile, about 100 meters from the bank entrance, in an alley, Team 2 was hiding. It looks like something's happened with Deadshot, Captain Boomerang said with a grim expression. Doesn't that mean the plan has failed? Damn it. It's clearly the most crucial step. Captain, should we retreat? The other team members were already starting to retreat. Without the kryptonite weapon, the plan was completely doomed. At least, I have a trick up my sleeve. A cold glint flashed in Captain Boomerang's eyes. With a pained look, he fished for a second box from his pocket. As the box opened, a green light suddenly flashed. This is, hope returned to the other team members' eyes. Removing the second kryptonite bullet, Captain Boomerang loaded his pistol and aimed it at Supergirl, who was 100 meters away. Meanwhile, Supergirl was handing over the robbers to the arriving police, unaware of the potential danger. At the critical moment, a fishing jellyfish sphere emerged from one of the team members and ricocheted towards Captain Boomerang's neck. Puff. Blood spurted out, leaving a bloody gash in Captain Boomerang's throat. Captain Boomerang groaned in pain, but still pulled the trigger. The kryptonite bullet transformed into a streak of green light, traversing the 100-meter distance in the blink of an eye, passing between the police car and Gordon, and striking the Supergirl in her left shoulder. The sudden scene stunned everyone present. Horizontal ellipsis. Snap. The bullet, shimmering green, struck Kara's left shoulder, leaving the girl's shoulder intact. Furthermore, the kryptonite bullet erupted with a green mist. The kryptonite mist penetrated Kara's body, coating her in a layer of green energy arcs. Like a special deity standing in the human world. Kara's eyes flashed green as she glanced at the bullet in her hand. So, there's an accomplice. How could this be? Killer Croc and the others' pupils constricted. They couldn't accept it. After planning all night, this was the outcome? Take cover, there's a shooter behind us. Gordon shouted quickly, then looked at Supergirl. Are you okay? I'm fine, wait here for me. Supergirl flew up from the spot, vanishing from sight, and the next moment, appeared in an alley 100 meters away. In the alley, Captain Boomerang collapsed to the ground, clutching his bleeding throat. The others also lowered their heads with gloomy expressions. The plan had clearly failed utterly. Who could have imagined that the kryptonite bullet, considered a weapon of God-killing, would have no effect? Some members were already beginning to wonder if the kryptonite bullet was a counterfeit. Alice, that didn't matter anymore. After tonight, those who failed would be confined to Arkham or a heavy prison, never to see the light of day again. Through the can, he learned what had just happened. In the dark, Nian was also somewhat surprised. Kara, when did you become immune to kryptonite? He was certain that it was indeed genuine kryptonite. Right. Nian suddenly remembered. Ever since last time. Gwen's abilities have undergone special changes, such as her spider silk being strengthened into tiny, metallic, sharp threads. And now, is Kara immune to kryptonite attacks due to the special enhancements to her Man of Steel? Chapter 243, Batman Calls, Poison Ivy. Captain Boomerang had died from excessive blood loss. A green aura rose and lingered. Supergirl, carrying two sullen criminals in each hand, flew back to the police car outside the bank with the four of them, surrounding the scene and packing them up. She pocketed the second kryptonite bullet. This also announced that Gotham's worst villain's plan to target Supergirl tonight had failed miserably. Across the street, somewhere in Gotham City, even Nian felt like he'd been ripped off. If he'd known Kara wasn't afraid of kryptonite, and even seemed to be able to gain amplification from it, he wouldn't have had to resort to this insider trickery tonight. No. Nian narrowed his eyes slightly. Tonight's scene was more like a collusion. There must be a hidden mastermind who provided the two kryptonites. A gangster like Captain Boomerang, disdained even by Gotham's criminals, couldn't possibly have scavenged kryptonite, a rarer commodity than vibranium, from the ground. Furthermore, some of the attendees at tonight's meeting were mercenaries, money-hungry individuals, true desperados. For example, Deadshot. This was why Nian didn't kill him immediately. Following Deadshot should give him the answers he wanted, and there was also this. Nian's mind flashed to that beautiful, model-like, blonde, blue-eyed female archaeologist. Joan Moon. Her abilities were unknown, but she was definitely a terrifying presence. She instantly killed everyone on her team, then mysteriously transformed back into an archaeologist, reappearing at an archaeological site thousands of kilometers away. She probably possessed teleportation abilities similar to portals. Furthermore, even a kryptonite-free steel figure posed a threat. Did this mean she possessed special abilities, perhaps involving non-physical or spiritual energy? Nian pondered this and decided he couldn't ignore this unknown entity. Although she hadn't attacked Supergirl Kara or him tonight, given her bizarre behavior, there was no guarantee she would suddenly reappear. If there was a chance, he should switch to a more suitable mode to engage her. Alice, keep an eye on John Moon. Guan Luo, track Deadshot. I need to know if he has a boss behind the scenes, Nian ordered. At that moment, his spider sense seemed to pick up something. His dark windbreaker fluttered, and like a bat, Nian spread his knight-like wings and vanished across the building rooftop. Shortly after Nian left, about 10 seconds later, a petite girl with twin ponytails and a shark that walked like a humanoid, hurriedly appeared in the alleyway where Nian had stopped not long ago. Sniff. The humanoid shark's nose twitched, its small eyes rolling. Here, there's the lingering scent of cat boss. Are you sure it's here? I don't see anyone. The twin-tailed girl glanced around quickly. Maybe I'm too hungry and smelled it wrong. Nanoi, bear with it. Look carefully. On the rooftop of a neighboring high-rise, his dark windbreaker fluttering in the wind, Nian looked down at the man and shark pursuing him. It's those two guys. Guan Luo recognized them. On the previous island nation, the jellyfish fragments had gnawed at King Shark's body. The food was so hard, sour, and incredibly unpalatable that he couldn't help but ask, what should we do with them? Ignore them for now, Nian thought. Tonight, Harley Quinn and King Shark weren't involved, and they posed no threat to him, so Nian decided to wait and see. His dark windbreaker fluttered, and Nian turned and left, his figure disappearing into the night. Downstairs, Harley Quinn seemed to notice something. She suddenly leaned over, picked up something, and handed it to King Shark. Nanoi, smell this. Nanoi looked down, dazed. In Harley's hand was a tiny black hair. Strangely, the hair was like a needle made of a special metal, flexible yet incredibly hard. Nian landed in a Gotham park. The lights were dim and the pedestrians were few. Here, he changed back to his original attire. His hair turned from silver back to black. The dark trench coat returned to its dark blue base when he arrived in Gotham City. His once slightly mature face also took on a more youthful quality. Nian, like any other man, emerged from the park's bushes, intending to reunite with Kara first, when the phone in his trench coat pocket suddenly chimed. Master, an unknown caller, Alice's voice echoed through. Unknown. Nian froze. Who would call him so late at night? From where? Nian asked curiously, pulling out his phone. Gotham City, Wayne Tower, chairman's office. Nian's eyes flickered as he listened to Alice's words. There was essentially only one person calling from this location, Batman, Wayne Bruce. The fact that someone called him suddenly, at this time, was quite intriguing. Speaking of which, Nian had had numerous interactions with Batman, through his Aunt Diana, Scarlet Maid Wanda, the Justice League, and the newly created company, Future Chronicle. However, he had only actually met him once. That was during a brief encounter at Superman Plaza when he was in super deified mode, and they hadn't had any personal conversation. Master, do you want to answer? Alice asked softly. Now that he was in Gotham, he should meet his host. Nian pondered for a moment, and just as he was about to answer the call, he suddenly stopped. He turned off his phone and put it in his pocket. Nian's eyes narrowed slightly, looking at the park path ahead. Zizzy. The iron lamps lined up in the park went out one after another. No, not out, it was more like the bulbs were blocked by something. Chirp. The sound of something climbing the wall echoed in every corner of the park, making people's scalps tingle. Dark shadows like long snakes entwined the public streetlights. Along with them, the public security cameras in the park were also blocked. Soon, the huge park was completely dark, completely shrouded by the night. Aren't you going to come out yet? Nian stood there calmly. In the darkness, the young man's eyes were still piercing as he looked towards a corner. Tap tap. The sound of high heels tapping on the road was heard, and a graceful figure walked out of the darkness. Brother, you really are good at running around in Gotham, making me chase you around in circles for a long time. With a charming and seductive laugh, the woman seemed to be lazily coquettishly saying, what I didn't expect is that you are actually younger than you pretended to be. I'm really troubled. Should I call you brother or little brother? Sorry, only one person can call you little brother. Nian shrugged, staring at the seductive woman who walked out of the darkness, like a poison ivy flower. She was able to ignore the warnings of the spider sense, the vigilance of Alice and Guan Luo, and the only thing that accurately locked her position. A glimmer of enlightenment flashed in Xinian's eyes. It's because of that glass of wine. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 244, Nian vs. Poison Ivy. Under the veil of night, in Gotham, a park shrouded in darkness. Countless green vines climbed up the lampposts, entwining and obscuring the bulbs and cameras, making it seem as if the plants had completely devoured the light. A head of sensual and alluring scarlet hair, like a thin, airy green dress in a playful style, revealed a large expanse of white in the night. Her stunningly graceful figure swayed gently, a beauty like a fallen forest elf. Poison Ivy, Pamela Isley. In response to Nian's words, Poison Ivy Pamela chuckled and said, "Correct, but there's no reward. My sister. Because I was injected with plant toxins, my blood has turned to chlorophyll, and the plants are like my family." Poison Ivy smiled and said, "The wine you drank is actually my diluted plant juice. In other words, after drinking it, you become the target of the plant's prey." Plants, hunt. Nian narrowed his eyes. "That's right. Don't think that only carnivores know how to hunt." Poison Ivy smiled slightly and explained like a botanist, "In nature, some plants, such as Venus flytraps, are naturally grown for hunting insects. In the forest, those seemingly harmless bushes and vines and weeds that can be found everywhere can also kill carnivorous beasts as powerful as lions and tigers, and turn their flesh and blood into nutrients for their own use. So, you want to hunt me?" Nian understood the meaning. Tonight, that meeting about Supergirl was so boring. What does Supergirl have to do with me? I'd rather be tending to my plants. Poison Ivy smiled charmingly. "But when I saw you at the bar, I did have a slight interest in you. It's still far from being a plant, but it was enough to make me want to have some fun. And, even more surprising, you and Harley actually have a history. Not only did you not die at her hands, but you actually left a mark on her. How fascinating, isn't it?" Poison Ivy exclaimed, like a scholar thirsting for knowledge. "For my own amusement, let's consider it a favor to Harley. How about you just do it?" At this point, Poison Ivy seriously proposed to Nian. "Supergirl." Nian suddenly looked behind Poison Ivy in surprise. "What?" Poison Ivy was startled and instinctively turned to look. Whoosh! A strong wind blew outward, and Nian, wearing a blue windbreaker, flew up quickly. He happened to be on the enemy's home turf, perfect for unleashing his abilities. With insufficient intelligence and a currently subpar ability, Nian planned to slip away and reunite with Kara later. Just as Nian soared about 5 meters above the ground, whoosh whoosh whoosh, green snake-like shadows suddenly shot out from all directions, encircling Nian. They were rapidly growing, controlled vines. Although his spider sense had predicted the attack's direction, Nian, in mid-air, was completely unable to keep up with its warnings. The green snake still entangled his limbs, waist, and neck. More flexible than nylon rope, they autonomously twisted and spread across his body, tightening like roots. The magic levitation cloak tried to pull Nian free, but couldn't break free. "Don't try to trick me, little rascal. I've been prepared for that." Poison Ivy chuckled, removing her black high heels and stepping onto the carpet like grass with her small, snow-white feet. Stepping forward, Poison Ivy waved her hand, and a dozen vines suddenly descended, carrying Nian. Looking at the boy so close, Poison Ivy froze. Her vines were always thorny, strong enough to pierce protective clothing, but this time, the thorny vines pierced the boy's body. That's strange. Moving windbreaker aside, the barbs pierced his shirt and pants, and touching the boy's skin felt like piercing finely tempered steel. Even as the vines tightened around the boy's body, they barely dented his flesh, instead revealing perfectly firm muscle curves. "What's with your strength?" Poison Ivy's lips parted, surprised. Nian sighed. He hadn't wanted to use it, but in the end, he had to. The metal necklace around his neck, the pendant hidden beneath his clothes, began to glow with a faint, misty blue light. Just as Nian was about to use the space pendant to teleport away, a warm, smooth touch spread across his chest. "It's not a space pendant, but..." Poison Ivy in front suddenly reached out and curiously touched Nian's body, through the torn hole in his shirt. In the past, She would not have touched anyone else. After all, she was full of poison, and if she touched the other person, they would be sent to the emergency room. But the boy's physique at the moment seemed a little special. "You are really okay, not afraid of my poison?" Looking at the completely unharmed body, Poison Ivy was extremely surprised, as if she had discovered a new world. "Try that." Following her habit of studying things, Poison Ivy slid her hands down along the torso, all the way to Nian's stomach, as if trying to control and guide something. The next moment, Nian's body struggled slightly, his face looked a little uncomfortable, his spirit was excited and his breathing was rapid, and his eyes were no longer calm and flushed. Sure enough, the poison had no effect. "But because you drank the plant juice, your hormones are still under my control." Poison Ivy's lips curled up, and she said proudly, "You didn't know that? Hormones are even more powerful than ordinary poisons. Killing someone with them is definitely not difficult. So, don't think I can't do anything to you. Okay, time to pack you up and take you back." Poison Ivy hadn't finished her words. Nian suddenly gasped, looked her straight in the face, and said, "Poison Ivy, you're playing with fire." "What?" Poison Ivy was stunned for a moment, and then, a mysterious blue mist suddenly exploded before her eyes. She opened her eyes wide in disbelief, watching as the blue mist enveloped the boy and disappeared into the vines. Escaped. Poison Ivy was still in shock and confusion, and at the same time, an identical blue mist erupted from close behind her. "What?" Without waiting for Poison Ivy to turn around, Nian appeared and swept her to the ground with both hands. Not an escape, but a counterattack. Poison Ivy was startled at first, but after all, having lived in Gotham for so many years, her reactions to a fight were incredibly quick. She waved her hand. Immediately, countless vines, like green snakes, enveloped Nian. Poison Ivy also controlled the raging outburst of hormones. Plant manipulation, hormone toxins. A dual approach. Faced with Poison Ivy's myriad abilities, Nian clasped her vine-like, slender waist with both hands, and made a single move, open his mouth and lean forward. Chapter 245 Grass Modes in Batman Invites. Ouch! Poison Ivy stared at the boy's face so close, their noses touching, and her beautiful eyes widened. This guy, is he trying to kill himself? Poison Ivy's mind went blank, and she wondered for no reason. The plant toxins in her body were 10 times more toxic. She was called a rose with thorns, but in reality, the thorns were a friendly protection against her enemies. And for this very reason, even in Gotham City, even though people coveted her beauty and figure every day, they avoided her at first sight. To die beneath the peony? The problem was, just the slightest contact would kill you instantly. And it would be an extremely painful death. Nian held on to the rosy, alluring fragrance, and his lips immediately stained a faint purple blue. Even a body of steel seemed unable to withstand this plant toxin. At the same time, several thorny vines quickly wrapped around his body from behind, trying to drag him away. Like suction cups. Nian clung tightly to the slender waist wrapped in a green gauze dress, seemingly oblivious to the poison, only to become more aroused, absorbing more of the toxin. Woo! Unfamiliar and profoundly uncomfortable, Poison Ivy twisted her body violently, allowing Nian to feel the vine's suppleness. They say appearances are deceiving, only the inner is true. It must be said. This highly toxic substance, considered dreadful by others, was, in reality, as sweet and smooth as snowy mountain spring water. Nian clung to her tightly, desperately absorbing it. This was the poison, but also the agent. To him, it was another special antidote. In that instant. Opposite sex. Physical contact. 3 difficult yet simple preconditions fulfilled, the master of the familiar was triggered. Woo. Under Poison Ivy's incredulous gaze, the young man's dark hair suddenly turned red. The pale purple marks of the poison on his face quickly faded like a tide, returning to his original fair and rosy complexion. His skin was smoother and more refined than before, without a single blemish. A natural, fresh aura emanated from Nian. Compared to Poison Ivy's image of a fallen elf, the boy now resembled the flawless spirit of legend. The vines that had once entangled Nian now treated him as a fellow creature, quickly loosening and retracting their grip. Now it's my turn, Nian pressed down. Fighting poison with poison. Hormones erupted in both of their bodies, and an uncontrollable wave of emotion and instincts permeated every corner of their being. Poison Ivy's snow-white skin seemed to take on a faint pink hue, appearing even more alluring and beautiful. No. As if realizing something, Poison Ivy finally panicked. Although she didn't know how the other party had acquired her ability, she understood its power and implications better than anyone else. Her body was beginning to weaken, and her spirit, despite its high spirits, felt a little dizzy, the lingering pleasure like drunkenness. "Please, let me go," Poison Ivy pleaded anxiously. Hearing the other person's words, Nian placed his hands on the grass, barely propping up his altered power mode and separating from the other person. Compared to the other person, he was less resistant to hormones. Since he'd already taught the other person a lesson, let's leave it at that. Nian held his breath. He was about to stand up when something like a vine, though more flexible than a vine, wrapped around his waist, one on each side. Nian looked down. A pair of smooth, tight legs, like ivory, gleaming in the night. As Nian lowered his head, a pair of slender arms wrapped around his neck, gently slamming into his embrace. "Ms. Poison Ivy, you're not a forest elf, you're a goblin," Nian said seriously. The sky was dotted with stars, and Gotham Park was dark and silent. Thornless vines sprouted rapidly under the night sky, spreading from all directions to the center of the lawn, where they twisted and woven into a 2-meter-high circular plant cage. The vines and leaves were tightly entwined, leaving no space between them. A smartphone had fallen onto the grass outside the vine cage. The screen lit up white. Besides the missed call from the Wayne Group office, there was also a missed call from Kara. For some reason, the phone didn't vibrate or ring. It was night. The park was completely enveloped by the blanket-like gloom, and no one knew what was happening there. "Oh, this guy, he's such a worry." Outside the balcony of Nian's house, a colorful starfish in a glass jar opened its single, bright eye, a flicker of helplessness in its eyes. Guan Luo's mind moved. With his mental power, the computer screen in Nian's deserted room quietly lit up. As if being rapidly tapped by invisible fingers, the keyboard typed out a line of English: "Alice, your master needs your help now." In less than half a second, another line of text appeared on the screen: "Mr. Guan Luo, your master has not issued any instructions." This was the unique way that the alien organism, Guan Luo, and the artificial intelligence Alice communicated. Guan Luo continued tapping away at the keyboard with his telekinesis. "You should know that his current state, well, he doesn't have time to issue any orders." "Alice, what do you mean?" "Guan Luo, as a butler, even if the master doesn't tell me, I must do the right thing for him." 3 seconds passed, as if after countless code calculations and rehearsals. Alice finally responded, "I understand. What should I do, Mr. Guan Luo?" "Guan Luo, just do as I say, you'll be right." Meanwhile, on a night market street in Gotham, a beautiful girl, having changed from her previously invincible Supergirl outfit to a bright, youthful miniskirt, blinked at the unanswered message on her phone. Strange, where did Senior go? Kara frowned slightly. Could he be in some danger? Kara was about to transform back into Supergirl and fly high into Gotham to investigate. But then, her phone suddenly rang. The caller ID read, "Nian. Senior." Kara quickly answered the call. As a result, a pleasant and gentle female voice came from the phone. "Hello, Miss Kara, I am Master Nian's intelligent butler, Alice." "Ah, Alice, hello." Kara was stunned at first, feeling surprised, and then smiled. "I heard Nian mention you, a very good artificial intelligence. Thank you for your compliment. It's like this, Miss Kara." Alice didn't give Kara a chance to ask, and said directly, "The master has already known about the assassination attempt on you tonight. He has infiltrated the criminal gang and is seriously trying to find out the identity of the mastermind behind the scenes. Since it is inconvenient to use the mobile phone, I will call you back on your behalf." "So that's the case." Kara suddenly realized, and then worriedly said, "Is he okay?" "He is in good condition now, please rest assured. If there is any situation, I will notify you as soon as possible." Alice continued, "I will send you a list first. These are all the people who escaped the assassination attempt on you tonight. You can deal with it first. The master will contact you tomorrow." Without waiting for Kara's response, a list has been transferred to the phone. Looking at the criminal list and detailed addresses, Kara nodded and said, "Okay, I understand. Tell him to be careful." "I'll pass on your message," Alice replied gently, then disconnected the call. "Senior, you're working so hard to fight crime for me. I have to work harder." Kara took a deep breath, clenched her fists, her eyes brimming with fighting spirit. That night, Supergirl barely slept, busting criminals across Gotham, causing untold suffering for the local criminal population. Doesn't this Supergirl sleep? Until the next morning. Gotham in the daylight. Although the sun remained hidden behind thick clouds as usual, the dark fog that shrouded the city had dissipated considerably. Last night, countless Gotham criminals were sent to Arkham and the penitentiary. It was like a major purge. At least, for the time being, Gotham's crime scene would be quiet. As for eradicating it, that was something that would never be achieved. Batman couldn't do it, and neither could Supergirl. Unless all of Gotham City is destroyed, night will continue to fall, and darkness will continue to breed evil. Horizontal ellipsis. Nian and Kara reunited before noon on Sunday. Seeing the slightly dark circles under Nian's eyes, as if he hadn't slept much, Kara asked with concern, "Senior, are you okay last night?" "No, it was a close call." Nian looked calm, though a little guilty. If Karen knew what he had done last night, would she send him to Arkham for electrotherapy? That's good. Kara carefully checked Nian's condition, and only felt relieved when she confirmed he was fine. Kara said, "I've arrested almost all the criminals on that list you sent me." Last night, Commissioner Gordon's jail was nearly full. She paused, ruffling her hair a bit sheepishly. "However, we haven't uncovered the mastermind behind last night's incident. Some of the mercenaries were passed around through intermediaries. I've made some progress." Nian smiled faintly. "Last night, we investigated the relevant personnel, and with Alice's help, we finally uncovered a clue." "You found the mastermind behind last night's incident?" Kara asked in surprise. "Yes." Nian nodded calmly. "In the coffee shop. Lex Luthor." Kara muttered the name softly, her eyes slightly cold. "I've heard of that name." Nian nodded. "Lex Luthor. He was once the young billionaire CEO of Metropolis. He had instigated the civil war between Batman and Superman, created the Kryptonian creature Doomsday who killed Superman, and was also the indirect instigator of the Apocalypse invasion. He's an ordinary person, yet a conspirator with exceptional intelligence and strategy. He's vanished from the face of the earth since Clark Superman's death, his company declared bankruptcy, and no one knows where he's gone. Until yesterday, he suddenly reappeared, using funds and kryptonite to plot against Supergirl. However, even Nian doesn't know where he's hiding right now. He seems to have long been wary of artificial intelligence and online searches, even relying on others to retrieve some dark web information. Like a ghost lurking in the shadows of the world. "Don't worry, Kara, I'll help you find him," Nian said confidently, shaking Kara's hand. "After all, he's just an ordinary person. He has countless ways to find him, it's only a matter of time." After finishing their coffee, Nian and Kara planned to find a place for lunch and continue their date, which had been interrupted last night. Unexpectedly, Kara's phone rang in her pocket. Kara pulled it out, looked at Nian, who was sitting across from her, and said, "It's Mr. Bruce." Nian nodded, expecting this. If the other party hadn't called, he should have called back. Kara answered the call, exchanged a few words, then nodded quickly and said into the phone, "Yes, I'm on a date with Nian." A hint of surprise in Kara's eyes, she put down the phone and said to Nian, "Mr. Bruce said he'd treat us to lunch and asked us to come over." "Senior, what do you mean? Why not?" Nian smiled and said, "I'd like to meet this Gotham host, too." Not long after, a stretched, luxurious vintage car pulled up in front of the coffee shop. Nian and Kara got in. Looking at the energetic old butler in the driver's seat, Nian asked in surprise, "Butler Afu, you're the one picking us up?" The Wayne family had more than one servant, and Butler Afu was clearly the most senior among them. "Long time no see, Master Prince." Butler Afu smiled and said, "You two distinguished guests. That's why I came all the way here to pick you up." "Don't bother, it'd be faster if I flew over," Kara whispered. "Miss Kara, I'm certainly aware of that. At my age, I've become accustomed to you suddenly falling from the sky and landing in this manner." Butler Afu said gently, "However, it would be rude not to provide adequate hospitality." The stretched luxury vintage car started up and drove at a steady speed. After passing through the bustling urban area, it arrived at an area that was clearly in the city, but felt like a suburb, with a large manor. Within the forest-like manor, a building resembling a castle stood. This was the manor house where generations of Wayne family patriarchs had lived. Nian looked at the vast and luxurious buildings and wondered if he should build a residence. After all, the house was overflowing with strange and bizarre items, and if guests came, there would be no room for them. Of course, this would require consultation with Aunt Diana before making a decision. "Young master, the guests have arrived." Butler Afu led Nian and Kara into the manor house. A gentleman with white hair and a wise gaze, dressed in a black cloak, was already standing upright at the door, waiting. Holding hands with Kara, Nian and Kara's eyes met the moment they entered the mansion. Batman, Wayne Bruce. This was their first official meeting. Chapter 246, Auntie's meeting with Gwen. It was the weekend, midday. In Gotham City, on a street in the city. A bar was cordoned off, and several police cars were parked in front. Officers were rushing in and out. At the corner, a young woman in a baseball cap and carrying a baseball bag glanced toward the bar from a distance. She adjusted the brim of her cap and whispered to a 2 to 3 meter tall inflatable shark doll nearby, "Let's go." The shark doll nodded, its plump, short legs stretching out to follow the cap girl's steps. It was none other than Harley Quinn and Away the shark. After a night of tracking and searching, Harley still couldn't find the silver-haired young man. Most of the people who attended the impromptu meeting last night had been arrested, and even the speakeasy had been shut down. Clearly, this was a terrible defeat for Gotham. However, Harley didn't care. Besides, she hadn't come up empty-handed last night. That unusual hair. Harley pondered as she led King Shark, dressed in an inflatable shark costume, through several alleyways to a more secluded speakeasy bar that hadn't even opened yet. Harley didn't believe Poison Ivy would be caught, so she went to the prime location where she might be hiding, a place known only to her. She removed the closed sign and pushed the door open, feeling at home. "Ah, Harley." Nanoi suddenly called out. "What's wrong?" Harley turned curiously, only to find that Nanoi's already tall and muscular frame had grown even larger due to the inflatable costume, making it impossible for him to fit through the bar's narrow entrance. "You stay outside. I'll go in and get you something to eat. I'll be right back." Harley waved, took out her baseball bat, and stepped inside. The speakeasy was deserted, dim as night, with only the light at the front desk. "Pamela, are you here?" Harley called out directly, her voice echoing faintly throughout the bar. Creak, the door to the back kitchen behind the bar's front desk opened, and a young, good-looking female waiter walked out. "Harley Quinn." The female waiter looked at Harley in surprise. Harley recognized the female waiter. She was one of the logistical staff she hired when she and Poison Ivy teamed up to commit crimes in Gotham. "Is Pamela here?" Harley asked. "No." The female waiter shook her head and said, "But my sister came here very early today, a few hours ago, and took some things from the underground warehouse and left." "Where did she go?" "She didn't tell you?" Harley asked curiously. "No." The female waiter said, "She took a shower here, changed her clothes, and then took the things and left. This is not like her style." Harley muttered to herself. "Oh, right." The waitress seemed to recall something, a look of worry on her face. "There's something that really concerns me." "What?" "My sister seems to have injured her leg. She walks with a slight limp and isn't very mobile." "Injured?" Harley frowned. Could Poison Ivy have been injured? Was she caught in the same crackdown as Supergirl last night? Downtown Washington, a coffee shop. The streets outside were bustling with traffic, but the shop seemed relaxed and quiet. Customers entering, including the waitress, frequently cast their gazes towards the corner by the window. There sat a stunningly beautiful brunette and a young blonde, forming a beautiful scene. The brunette was at the peak of her female maturity. Her beautiful face, her features radiating a sharp, heroic spirit. She wore a stylish white gauze blouse and black trousers. As she sat in the chair, her figure formed a graceful and alluring curve. Her height, over 1.8 meters, matched her imposing presence. Every gesture exuded elegance and sophistication. In the bright daylight outside, her flawless, snow-white skin was smooth and radiant, like a creation of the gods. Even movie stars and models wearing filters would be ashamed of themselves. Across from her desk, the blonde girl's hair was even neater and shorter, framing her petite, delicate features. She wore a beige uniform and a black, knee-length skirt, her bust already impressive. Her legs, clad in shiny black stockings, were neatly placed together. Her small hands rested nervously on her thighs, their fingers digging slightly into the soft, supple flesh. She was a young woman shedding her childishness, revealing an intellectual presence. What? Am I intimidating? The brunette smiled. I'm surprised. The short-haired girl quickly waved her hand away. I just didn't expect Miss Diana to ask me out so suddenly. I wasn't prepared. I don't need to be prepared to meet me, Diana smiled. It's you, that's why I'm so nervous. Gwen's fingers tangled like tangled spider threads, feeling even more pressure than dealing with a supervillain, just like when Nian went to Kara's house. This is like meeting the parents. Especially since Gwen had previously caught Nian and Diana practicing. Diana gently stirred her coffee and said, I've seen on TV that you've embarked on the path of a superhero, and you're doing everything right. Thank you. Gwen nodded shyly, a rare moment of shyness, then bit her lip. But I still lost to Kara. My own strength isn't strong enough. Several times before, Nian had to come to my rescue. Although Gwen didn't show it on the surface, she was still upset about losing the date this week. It's not important, actually. Diana shook her head slightly, smiling. Didn't he meet you when you were little because he wanted to protect you? It wasn't strength that mattered to him. Even if you were just an ordinary person, he would still protect you. That's true. Gwen suddenly realized. She'd been with Nian for more than a decade longer than Kara, so what was there to be jealous of? At least, in Gwen's opinion, she was second in importance and cherishment to Nian. Kara was naturally first. Gwen's thoughts raced. As expected of Miss Diana, she was truly remarkable. Just one sentence had not only brightened her mood but also eased her tension. While Gwen admired her, another thought occurred to her. So, was Miss Diana the same as herself? Because she'd been with Nian longer than anyone else, she didn't care if a few days, even weeks or months, passed. She'd kept that burning feeling hidden within her. If it were her, she'd have been unable to bear it long ago. Gwen cupped the warm coffee in her hands and took a sip. A hint of bitterness lingered at the corner of her mouth, followed by a faint sweetness. Diana spoke. Actually, I asked you out today because I do have something I want to ask you. What is it? Gwen blinked. You and Nian. Diana said calmly and naturally, you've done it, right. Chapter 247 Invitation from the Justice League. Gotham, Wayne Manor. On the second floor of the mansion, the dining area, unused for guests since the passing of the previous Wayne patriarch, was a place of leisure. The interior and decor were retro and grand, appearing spotless and odorless, evidently meticulously maintained daily by servants. A soft, fine carpet covered a long table, covered with a tablecloth and laden with delicious food. A single person sat at the main table, while a young man and a young woman sat side by side at the guest table. Is it okay? A gentleman with ring hair asked gently, carving a steak with a knife and fork. If this isn't okay, then there's probably nowhere else in downtown Gotham to dine. The dark-haired young man smiled. He wasn't used to dining in such formal settings, but once he sat in the plush chair, he didn't seem at all reserved. Instead, he spoke with a familiar air. Mr. Bruce, it's not what I expected. What's different? Wayne Bruce asked, somewhat surprised. Nian said with a hint of sarcasm, rumor has it that Mr. Bruce is a playboy who lives a life of debauchery, swapping models twice a day and even booking a popular chorus of dancers for overseas vacations. He's incredibly proud, conceited, and possessed of an overwhelming sense of superiority. This. Bruce felt as if his dark past had been exposed. It had been ages since anyone had dared to speak of him in that way in front of him, and this time it was a teenager, a friend's child, who had just reached adulthood. Alfred, the old butler standing behind him, chuckled quietly at the words, his lips curling up slightly. That was just a cover-up. You should have known my true identity from Diana. Bruce spread his hands and said, a superhero always has to have a suitable, ordinary person identity. A playboy, arrogant, is exactly the image the world welcomes from a billionaire heir. And Bruce paused, trailing off. To say he had no sense of superiority at all would be a bit pretentious. At least in his youth, he did possess a sense of superiority unmatched in Gotham City. If nobles are born with a silver spoon in their mouths, then he was born with an entire vault. Of course, a sense of superiority isn't entirely a bad thing. After all, it was one of the key factors that contributed to Wayne Bruce's rise to Batman, his desire to defend the city and the world. But this long-held sense of superiority had recently suffered its first setback. Wayne Bruce looked up at the dark-haired boy sitting nearby. He appeared to be a handsome, sunny, and ordinary boy, but only by getting to know him could one understand. Compared to him, his parents had passed away earlier, leaving him an orphan from birth, entering this world with nothing. Yet, he possessed a gift far more valuable than an entire vault. "Miss Diana, how are you doing?" Bruce asked. "Thank you for your concern." Nian smiled. "My aunt is doing well lately. She's eating, sleeping, and running." This description made Kara, who was standing beside him, burst into laughter. "Right. After all, she's a deity." Bruce nodded. "Mr. Bruce, you said Nian's aunt is a deity?" Kara suddenly asked in surprise. "That's right, Miss Diana is Wonder Woman, a descendant of the ancient Greek gods and one of the early members of our Justice League," Bruce said. "I thought you already knew that," Nian said to Kara. "How would I know if you didn't tell me?" Kara snorted, but she wasn't angry, just acting coquettishly. However, Supergirl's coquettishness was unique to teenagers. This was the source of Bruce's frustration. A key partner in his entrepreneurial venture suddenly quit to go home and raise a child, a grown child. Few things would bother Bruce, but this was one of them. However, if it were a teenager today, Bruce would have a vague understanding. Nian Prince. Wayne Bruce put down his knife and fork, stared directly at Nian, and said without hesitation, "Are you interested in joining the Justice League?" "Huh?" Nian was stunned. This was too sudden. Not only him, but also Kara and Butler Alpha were stunned. The dining area suddenly fell silent for a few seconds. "Mr. Bruce, what are you talking about?" "Nian is just an ordinary person," Kara said, breaking the silence. "Who says ordinary people can't become superheroes?" "I'm ordinary too." Bruce, his eyes never leaving Nian, said in a deep voice, "If you join, I can provide you with the most advanced suits." Butler Alpha narrowed his eyes, pondering. "Master Bruce, is this trying to cultivate a second generation of Batman?" But it doesn't seem so. Nian understood the reason for Batman's persistence. Perhaps he already knew some of his modes. For example, the Super God and Trinity modes he had seen before him last time, which also reminded him of the aftermath of his first incarnation of demigod, handled long ago with the help of Wayne Group resources. Whatever the case, Batman knew something about his abilities. "I'm sorry, Mr. Bruce," Nian shook his head. "I simply don't have the ambition or awareness to be a superhero." "Really? What a pity," Wayne Bruce sighed. After Nian's refusal, he wasn't angry, nor did he insist on persuading him, but simply felt regret. His eyes quickly grew firm, and he said in a deep voice, "It's okay if you don't join the Justice League. But you know, when the world needs you, even if you don't want to step forward, you'll still reach out to hold up the collapsing sky." Nian's eyes flickered. Bruce continued, "From now on, I'll send you all the intelligence on the Justice League. As for whether you want to join, and how to do it, that's up to you. At least the Justice League will do it. As the Eternal Pioneers, whether they can do it or not is another matter." A strange glint crossed Nian's eyes, and his opinion of Batman improved significantly. He couldn't refuse his words. After all, Batman had merely provided information, not asking him to join the League. Making this decision required sheer courage. What had driven him to this decision? Was it simply the temporary strength he had previously demonstrated? Nian pondered. Wayne Bruce harbored a secret. During their last battle with Steppenwolf, Bruce, transformed into Batman, and along with the Justice League, resurrected Superman on the Kryptonite ship. He saw it. Some scenes left a deep impression on him, scenes that often gave him nightmares. Furthermore, he clearly saw a second Flash appear on the scene. At that moment, the second Flash said, "Nian is the key. Nian Prince is the most important key." Chapter 248 Invisible Existence, Magician. It was a weekend night in Gotham, on the second floor of a five-star hotel. Beneath the dazzling glass lamps, beneath the red-carpeted floor, the hotel lobby was a splendid and opulent place. Pure music flowed through the room like the smooth, silky sound of a spring. It wasn't the distorted sound of a machine, but rather the performance of a professional orchestra, played by musicians in tuxedos, each playing small instruments. Amidst the sublime music, tables were laden with fine wine and delicious food. Elegant men in suits and tuxedos, and women in luxuriant, corseted dresses, strolled through the halls. It was a high-class banquet reserved for Gotham's elite. No one came for the food, but to socialize in the celebrity world. But that wasn't quite right. In a quiet corner of the main hall, away from the orchestra, a young man, dressed in a smart suit and waxed hair, looking like a little adult, sat alone, eating cake and drinking red wine, occasionally looking down at his phone like a homebody. He felt somewhat out of place with the surroundings. Sure enough, I still can't get used to it here. Feeling some strange looks, Zinnian glanced at the bright, elegant, and graceful crowd inside from the bottom of his heart. The reason why he was in this place all by himself had to start a few hours ago. After lunch at Wayne Manor, Batman Wayne Bruce invited Zinnian and Kara to a small dinner party hosted by Wayne Group, saying that there would be a magic show. Since Zinnian and Kara had something to do the previous night, they definitely had to stay in Gotham, so they accepted Bruce's invitation. However, what they didn't expect was, on the way to the dinner, Wayne Bruce received an intelligence message. He transformed into Batman, quickly summoned the Batplane, and followed Supergirl Kara to the outskirts of Gotham. The intelligence they received was that someone suspected to be Lex Luthor was entertaining unidentified individuals offshore. Batman, one of the victims of Lex Luthor's previous scheme, naturally began secretly searching for the mastermind, Lex Luthor, after the battle with Steppenwolf. While the Justice League lacked a highly intelligent artificial intelligence, it did possess a formidable tool, Cyborg, a superhero transformed by the Apocalypse Motherbox technology. Their intelligence came from Cyborg, who, having begun his search much earlier than the artificial intelligence Alice, had access to this crucial information. Having attracted nearly half the Justice League, Lex Luthor was a formidable villain. Since this was a Justice League operation, Nian naturally had no intention of joining. Furthermore, Nian's own combat power in his normal form was no match for even the weaker Cyborg in the Justice League. Meanwhile, Supergirl Kara, who could provide Nian with his abilities, was in a Kryptonian Superman mode that was difficult to fully control. Batman and the others would likely have to find someone else to suppress if he went. Consequently, Nian arrived here alone. Horizontal ellipsis. Zinnian, wait for me tonight. Recalling Kara's last, teasing glance and words from Supergirl, Nian took a sip of red wine, his drowsy mind suddenly perking up again. Tonight, Kara had to wear a formal dress. He wasn't overly concerned about Kara's actions this time. With Lex Luthor, half the Justice League should be able to take her down, right? And if his brother-in-law knew, it would be a dual Superman lineup, a formidable force capable of invading the divine realm. Nian ate idly, his thoughts scattered as a new feeling of drowsiness washed over him. Why am I so sleepy tonight? Was it because I didn't get much sleep last night? Just then, a subtle commotion echoed through the hall. Which noble lady is this? So cute. I've never seen her before. She's going over there. Many people stared in surprise. A crimson dress and beautiful hair swayed gracefully, and slender legs wrapped in white socks slowly stepped forward. A petite and adorable figure crossed the second-floor hallway, heading towards the young man seated in the corner of the balcony window. His spider sense had detected it. Zinnian looked up, his eyes reflecting the little girl in the crimson dress. He paused for a moment. Why are you here? Master Zinnian, as your personal maid, isn't it normal for me to be here? The crimson girl smiled faintly. The figure who appeared before Zinnian was none other than the crimson maid Wanda. Wanda leaned forward slightly and said softly, Teacher Afu informed me in advance that the young master would be attending this kind of banquet, so I wanted to come. Really? Thank you for your hard work. As Zinnian spoke, little Wanda took the wine and poured it for him, then stood obediently and uprightly beside him. The strange looks from some of the guests turned to surprise. Servants and bodyguards were a way for Gotham's elite to display their status. It was like attending a typical social dance. As a man, how you dress isn't really important, as long as you're dressed appropriately. What matters is the quality and value of the women accompanying you. Zinnian had just taken a sip of wine. Behind him, the crimson maid leaned over gently, whispering softly, Young master, drink less. If you get drunk, I won't be able to lift you. I don't get drunk that easily. Zinnian smiled, but stopped drinking. Young master, don't you want to try socializing with the people here? Wanda asked curiously. There's no need, and I'm not interested. Zinnian shook his head. If the people knew he was invited by Wayne Bruce personally, they might come over to curry favor. Or, perhaps, he'd reveal his identity as the head of Future Chronicle Company. Either way, Xinian didn't want to do anything. It was too much trouble. That's fine. Anyway, I'm here with you, young master, Wanda said with a smile. Xinian nodded. Wanda, however, suddenly seemed to notice something and asked curiously, strange, why is there a crow here? Where are the crows? Xinian blinked, scanning the vast, luxurious hall. He saw no crow. If such a strange creature existed, his spider sense would have detected it long ago. Wanda pointed to a glass lamp in the banquet hall and said, a little crow. Black, tiny, standing on the lamp. Didn't you see it, young master? Hearing Wanda's questioning words, Xinian's heart trembled. He knew Wanda never lied or joked. Xinian stared intently at a spot on the lamp, but still couldn't see the crow-like bird. No, he couldn't see it. Xinian quickly understood. Just like before he knew of his Aunt Diana's demigod status, as an ordinary person, he couldn't see the artifact hanging from the living room ceiling. The gentlemen and ladies in the hall conversed in gentle and elegant whispers, no one paying attention to the bright lamp. Obviously. At this very moment, at a celebrity banquet in Gotham, hidden was a crow invisible to everyone but Wanda. Guan Luo, can you see that crow? Xinian asked inexplicably into the air. He carried a jellyfish fragment, allowing him to communicate freely with Guan Luo back home. Guan Luo quickly responded with his mind, no. However, I just vaguely sensed 3 powerful and ominous energies at this banquet. 3. Xinian's mouth twitched. Guan Luo confirmed, and 2 of them give me the same feeling as the one I encountered last night, John Moon. This was trouble. Xinian frowned. Gotham is undoubtedly a place that breeds villains. Wanda, is that crow still there? Xinian took a deep breath, calming himself slightly, and asked solemnly in a low voice. Wanda also noticed something was wrong and nodded, yes, it's flown to a nearby light fixture. It's looking towards us. Looking this way? Nian could imagine an invisible crow perched on the glass lamp, gazing at him with its dark, indifferent eyes. Good fellow, it's targeting them, isn't it? Nian sneered, undeterred, and directed Wanda, ignore it for now. If it attacks us, or even shows signs of attacking, immediately retaliate with magic. Yes, young master. Wanda's rosy eyes grew serious. She pulled a vibrant red cloth from her pocket, lightly tucking her loose crimson hair. She stepped forward, her small frame poised in front of the young man. She was no longer the little girl, helplessly waiting to die in the rubble. Besides being a model student and a maid, she had another identity. Nian's face remained calm and composed. With Wanda by his side, he showed no fear. According to the Ancient One, Wanda had now mastered every spell in Kamartaj, save for the Forbidden Tome, and had achieved a perfect level of mastery. On magic, Wanda, after only a month or 2 of training, had already reached a realm unmatched by many in Kamartaj, including the other 2 sanctuaries. Besides, even if they truly couldn't defeat him, Xinian could teleport Wanda away with him. He wore the dimensional necklace constantly. A day had passed, and now he had 3 more teleportation opportunities. Just as Xinian was wary of the crows in the darkness, the lights in the banquet hall suddenly dimmed. The music faded. A single spotlight fell on the stage where the band had once stood in the main hall of the hotel. The magic show is about to begin, the guests whispered, their faces filled with anticipation. Master, it's too dark. I can't see the crows, Wanda whispered. Why not at this time? Xinian didn't know what to say. At the same time, Guan Luo's spiritual thoughts reached him. Xinian, that being with another powerful energy is directly in front of you, approaching this way. Xinian's heart trembled, and he looked forward. Then, he froze. The curtains on the stage opened, revealing a familiar yet unfamiliar figure, a magician's hat and black fishnet stockings. Her glasses-free eyes, like the stars of the night sky, shimmered with a lavender hue of confidence, wisdom, and mysterious charm. Her long, slightly curly black hair cascaded down to her slender waist. Her voluptuous figure was clad in a black, long-sleeved gown that reached her thighs, like a bunny girl's. Black fishnet stockings contrasted beautifully against her pale skin, and she wore high-heeled boots that reached almost to her knees. That exquisite face, that alluring figure, wasn't she the same fusty, rustic girl I had encountered when he first arrived at Gotham Station? Of course. Her bold and flamboyant magician attire perfectly matched the spotlight and the attention of the guests, with no trace of fussiness or frumpy at all. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Zatanna Zadara, and I'll be bringing you a magic show." Zatanna appeared, removed her hat, and bowed. Suddenly, a dozen white doves, too numerous to fit in the hat space, flew out. Their wings gleamed with a holy glow under the lights, and they fluttered and soared. Amidst the exclamations of the guests, the doves soared from the lobby, then from the hotel's second-floor balcony into the Gotham night sky. This simple, quick trick drew relentless applause from the guests. Zatanna, performing on stage, exuded confidence, completely unfazed, instantly commanding the stage. Guan Luo, are you sure it's her? Nian, in the audience, thought to himself. Guan Luo, absolutely. The energy within her is practically overflowing. Is she faking it? Or is she suppressing it? Nian pondered. In plain sight, there was a magician of unknown abilities, constantly summoning white doves. In the shadows, an invisible crow spied on the crowd. Add to that, what Guan Luo had just mentioned, hidden somewhere within the banquet hall. A third, weaker, yet still non-negligible, energy was present. Is this some kind of spooky gathering tonight? Nian was speechless. If Kara and Wayne Bruce had come here tonight as planned, it would have been truly bustling. The current situation was uncertain. Nian and Wanda chose to wait and see. On stage, after performing several magic tricks, Zatanna blinked intelligently, smiled faintly, and said, "Next, let me show you a magic trick." As she spoke, a wardrobe, barely large enough for one person, was wheeled up from backstage. "I need someone to perform with me." Zatanna stroked her chin in mock thought, her lavender eyes scanning the room. Then, with a smile, she pointed to point, "Sir, could you please come up?" The guests instinctively turned their heads. Their eyes all fell on the black-haired boy in the back corner. Nian narrowed his eyes slightly. He couldn't hide. "Master." Wanda's face was a little worried. "It's okay, you stay here and be safe. I'll go meet her." Nian's face was calm. He stood up and walked directly onto the stage. Chapter 249 Irony, It's Targeting You. Under Wanda's worried gaze and the expectant eyes of the guests, a dark-haired young man in a formal suit took the stage. Nian watched the beautiful, confident magician nearby. With his back to the audience, he spoke calmly, a voice only the two of them could hear. "Big sister, we meet again." "No, should I call you Magician Zatanna? Or Miss Zatanna?" "Sorry, I didn't mean to hide anything from you yesterday morning," Zatanna replied softly, apologetically. She was referring to the moment at the train station where she had denied her magician status. "There's nothing to apologize for. After all, we don't know each other. We're just strangers, so there's no need to reveal our true profession." Nian shook his head, understanding her casual attitude. Zatanna hesitated, knowing the young man's words were tinged with a certain distance. Perhaps, they could have been friends. But in her efforts to maintain a sense of secrecy, she had sacrificed a certain sincerity. Why hasn't it started yet? What are they talking about? What kind of magic trick is that? The guests below, watching the two suddenly stand silent on stage, couldn't help but murmur. "All right, don't keep us waiting any longer." Nian turned around, facing the audience, and asked the female magician next to him, "How can I help you?" Zatanna reacted quickly. She nodded immediately, opening the magic wardrobe behind her and speaking with a smile, "Everyone, please look. This is a completely empty wardrobe. No secret compartments, no traps." Zatanna even spun the man-sized wardrobe around so everyone could see the props clearly. "But while it may look ordinary, it's actually a truly magical magic wardrobe." Zatanna smiled slightly and gestured towards Nian. "Sir, may you please come in?" "Okay." Nian nodded and stepped inside. The wardrobe wasn't very spacious, there was only room for half a person to stand inside. "I'll close the closet door first. Wait a moment, and the magical scene will begin." Zatanna smiled slightly, reached out and closed the two doors of the closet, locking Nian inside. The guest stared at the closet intently, as if trying to find out something. Inside the closet, Nian stood in the narrow space, feeling as if he had fallen into darkness, completely isolated from the outside world, and could not hear any sound from outside. Nian's mind moved. The spider sense suddenly spread outward like a static field, but was quickly offset by the inner wall of the magic cabinet, unable to sense the situation outside. "Is this magic cabinet a magic weapon?" Nian's face was solemn. He went on stage to cooperate with Zatanna's magic show just to use himself as bait to see what the other party's purpose was. Now it seems that the other party wants to imprison him in this way. Outside, on the stage. Now, a magical moment is about to unfold. Zatanna clutched her magic wand, her beautiful eyes gleaming with a faint lavender light. She circled the tightly closed magic wardrobe and gently tapped it with her wand. Knock. Knock. What's that sound? Nian, inside the wardrobe, shuddered. He suddenly heard the wardrobe itself vibrate slightly, and Zatanna's voice echoed subtly beside him, I'll get you out of Gotham City. Take this opportunity to escape. Why should I run? Nian was confused. You've been targeted. Run before it notices you, and don't come back. Zatanna's voice became solemn and urgent. Before Nian could respond, she spoke inexplicably, her tone quick and her words incoherent. Get out of here. Everyone, look. On the stage, Zatanna suddenly opened the magic wardrobe, revealing a complete emptiness. The boy was gone. This immediately caused the banquet hall to erupt in cheers and applause. On the stage, the crow, which had been quietly perched atop the glass chandelier in the main hall, normally invisible, suddenly flapped its wings in annoyance, its dark, cold eyes fixed coldly on Zatanna below. Zatanna ignored him, waving to the guests and smiling as she slipped into an empty closet, closing the door from the inside. Now, the magic continues. Meanwhile, Nian stood there, slightly dazed. He glanced around, seeing the familiar platform, signage, and staircase. This was clearly a train station. The train station on the outskirts of Gotham. It was the same place where he had met Zatanna yesterday morning. Nian looked out. Outside, the night fell like a gloomy, mysterious fog, obscuring the vast city, shrouded by the glimmers of civilization not far away. This place is about 20 or 30 kilometers from the 5-star hotel in downtown Gotham, right? Nian wondered to himself. Clearly, this was teleportation. A spell, or magic? Whatever it is, that guy is more than just a magician. Nian pondered. Did Zatanna just say it was targeting him? Who is it? The invisible crow, or perhaps a third sinister entity hidden within the hotel? No, I must ask her for answers. Nian took a deep breath and quickly made a decision. If it were just one person, it would be fine, but Wanda was still inside the hotel. Nian reached out and grasped the space necklace pendant around his neck. Teleportation. Unfortunately, he could do it too. Back to where he'd been before, inside the magic wardrobe. Bang. The guests in the main banquet hall jumped in surprise. It was the tightly closed wardrobe that suddenly trembled violently, then quickly returned to its deserted calm. What had happened? Now, inside the wardrobe, the small, dark, silent space. Upon returning here via the special necklace, Nian immediately felt the space inside the closet shrink by more than half. A familiar exclamation echoed from nearby, and his face was completely buried in a soft, delicate mass. Even the slightest breath was filled with fragrance. And it wasn't just his face. Nian pressed his back against the inner wall of the magic closet, his hands, feet, and chest pressed tightly against a plump, fragrant body. He could feel the texture of the high-quality coat and uniform, the fishnet-lined black stockings. Nian was stunned. Across from him, Zatanna was also stunned. The magic closet, which normally only accommodated one person, was now squeezed by the two of them, leaving almost no space. Did my magic fail? Why are you back here? Zatanna's mind was a little confused, her breath struggling, and she spoke with difficulty, in a state of confusion. Fortunately, she was several centimeters taller, so the boy didn't compete with her for the top space of the closet where her head was. Compared to Zatanna's breathing difficulties, Nian couldn't breathe at all. Chapter 250, Nian invaded by ravens. Inside the magic closet, Nian subconsciously struggled to move his arm, trying to grope for the door. Instead, his arm got stuck in something even smoother and more delicate. This was. Don't move. Zatanna bit her lip, clamping down with a slight force. His spider sense was ineffective inside, blinded by the sheer size of the object, and Nian couldn't see a thing. If it weren't for his man of steel, Nian would have suffocated to death here. I won't move. Can you open the closet? Nian breathed. No, not yet. Zatanna replied frantically. The magic closet was still under the public eye, not yet moved backstage. Then answer me a question first. Nian held his breath and began, who is that you are pointing at? Zatanna paused for a moment, then said, if you can't see it, there's no point in telling you. Nian asked, are you talking about that crow? The one standing on the glass fixture outside. You can see it. Zatanna's chest heaved with shock and doubt. His face felt the fullness squeeze again. I guess so, Nian replied with difficulty. He couldn't see, of course, but Wanda could. Perhaps only those who can see souls can see it. Zatanna said in a complicated tone, that's not a crow, it's a raven. Ravens? Nian had heard of them. Ravens are closely related to crows, slightly larger than crows, and belong to the same family as corvids. But that's just its illusionary appearance. I'm not even sure what it is in essence. Zatanna said solemnly, I discovered it not long ago in downtown Gotham. It has no physical form, like the embodiment of an ominous evil spirit. Anyone it targets dies, without exception. Just now. You used magic to send me away, were you trying to save me? Nian suddenly realized. You shouldn't have come back, you shouldn't have come back, Zatanna repeated. Nian opened his mouth, about to say something, when sleepiness suddenly washed over him like a tide. So sleepy, so sleepy. Nian's eyelids felt heavy as lead. He closed his eyes, and his muscles relaxed. It's breaking through. Zatanna, as if sensing something, her face darkened. She shouted at Nian, it'll hypnotize you first, and then, when you're most relaxed, it'll devour you. Nian could no longer hear Zatanna's words. He had fallen asleep. A warm, holy white light filled every corner. A smaller, ethereal figure of a young man lay with his eyes closed in the very center of this space. This was Nian's spiritual world, the space where a person's soul resided. At this moment, accompanied by the strange cry of a crow, a dark mist broke through from outside. A tiny raven flapped its wings and flew in. Everything it passed was rendered pitch black, and the white light was gradually swallowed by the darkness, which continued to invade the space. The raven's dark eyes were devoid of any emotion. It itself was without feelings. It was the embodiment of evil. What was it doing? The raven didn't know. It had no emotions, only instinctively feeding. Darkness quickly enveloped half the area. A raven flew close to the boy's ethereal form. Normally, it would have opened its mouth and devoured him without hesitation. But this time, a flash of unprecedented surprise flashed across the raven's dark eyes as it landed near the boy's ethereal form. It suddenly didn't want to devour him. His soul was so alluring, yet it seemed unpalatable to consume it. Was it because it had lost its appetite? The raven didn't know. It had no emotions, and didn't know what emotions were. Therefore, it naturally had no idea of its current situation. The raven stared blankly at the boy nearby. The smaller version of Nian slept soundly, his delicate face unguarded. Tisk. A woman dressed as a magician entered the area. Zatanna, also in a semi-transparent state, shouted at the raven, let him go. The sight of the intruder suddenly irritated the previously docile raven. Just because it didn't want to eat didn't mean it would give it to someone else. It was instinctively protecting its food. The raven flapped its wings, and several jet black feathers fell from it, piercing the boy's ethereal form like darts. No. Zatanna was too late to stop it. Just as the feathers were about to pierce the boy's smooth, translucent form, the black formal attire he wore suddenly transformed into a luxurious, vintage-style dark red cloak. The cloak enveloped the boy's body, blocking the raven's feathers. What's that? Zatanna's eyes widened in amazement. At this sight, the raven suddenly flapped its wings wildly and soared, crashing into the cloak, attempting to forcibly tear it apart. Swish! A green, serpentine shadow suddenly appeared, tightly wrapping around the raven. It was a dark green vine covered in barbs and poison. With a flap of its wings, the raven struggled, and the evil darkness emanating from its body began to corrode the poisonous vine. But then, a spider's thread wrapped around Raven's body. The silk, as flexible as metal, made it difficult for Raven to break free. Vines, spider silk. Zatanna couldn't understand. How could such a thing exist in a space pure of souls? Whoosh! Zatanna turned back in surprise, as if sensing something. From beyond the white light, a brilliant red cloth flew in at lightning speed like a meteor, entangling Raven along with the vines and spider silk. The poison ivy, the spider silk, the red cloth, the combined force of these three made Raven unable to move. It's so hot. Zatanna reached up to wipe her forehead, then quickly realized that she was in spirit form. How could she possibly feel heat? Startled, Zatanna looked up. And then, she saw it. Besides the cloak, the vines, the spider silk, and the red cloth, there was a fifth thing here, the sun. A sun rose, its infinite light instantly dispelling the darkness, engulfing Raven and Zatanna in heat and light. In the magic wardrobe, Zatanna suddenly opened her eyes, cold sweat oozing from her smooth forehead, her eyes filled with fear. What was that just now? Fortunately, she ran fast, otherwise, she would have been in trouble too. Snap! At this moment, the magic wardrobe was suddenly opened from the outside. Standing outside was a young white woman, Zatanna's assistant and makeup artist. The wardrobe props had been moved backstage. Ms. Zatanna, what is going on? The female assistant looked at the black-haired boy still eyeing on Zatanna in surprise. After breaking free from the magic wardrobe, the boy's face was able to move a little further, and his breathing finally became smoother. His sleeping face looked much better than before. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.